What character would realistically learn magic in Marvel? This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 576, Feast. The mist was as cold as ice, and Francesca felt as if her spine had turned into ice. The candles that never went out and were powered by magic all went out, and the stained glass reflected the moonlight, shining into the hall, stretching the shadows of everyone on the floor. Their shadows merged together, like some kind of huge monster. "What's going on?" someone asked. "Why is the magic supply cut off? Damn, why can't I cast spells?" he shouted in panic. "God damn it, Anne, what's going on?" "Shut up," Anne said sternly in the darkness. "Calm down. Why are you like children? Don't panic. Who else can't cast spells?" She wanted to ask more questions, but suddenly felt someone staring at her from behind. The woman turned around suddenly, but there was nothing behind her. The heavy and exquisite tapestries were blown by the wind, fluttering, and hitting the wall, making a monotonous sound. "Wind? There shouldn't be any wind here." Fine beads of sweat poured out from her forehead. Anne opened her mouth and wanted to say something, but suddenly heard a voice in her ear. "SHH, who?" She turned around in panic. At this time, she didn't realize that her heart was filled with fear, an emotion she thought she would never have again. However, this time was exactly the same as last time. There was no one behind her. The cold wind whistled past. They blew through the closed windows, through the empty hall, through the heavy tapestries, and finally blew onto Anne's naked body. She trembled and tried to cast a spell, but the magic power in her body was like a stone sinking into the sea, giving her no response. The fog became heavier, and it surged out of the darkness, like an annotation of something coming. She retreated back until she was close to the wall and felt a little relieved. She wanted to observe the hall and see clearly what was happening in the darkness, but she could not see anything. The darkness completely obscured her vision. The fog continued to approach, thick and cold. A footstep began to slowly approach in the darkness. "Who?" she shouted into the darkness, raised her right hand, and frantically drove the magic power, trying to find a way to resist. "I warn you, I am Anne-Lys. I am the leader of the people of the world. No matter who you are doing something you can't bear." The footsteps stopped. "Very good. This means that he knows what organization the people of the world are. So, who is he?" "Damn, why can't I use magic power?" Anne-Lys shouted anxiously in her heart, while maintaining her calm on the surface. She continued to shout, "You'd better not do anything out of the ordinary, otherwise the world will be your enemy. Tell me, what did you do to the others?" "Hey!" A chuckle sounded, and something was thrown out of the darkness and thrown at Anne-Lys's feet. It was spinning, and Anne-Lys looked down, and a panicked scream almost sounded in her throat. That was the head of Julian Nellis. After the ritual transformation, he should have become an immortal life. This was the case for everyone in the hall. The 30 hermits had completely transformed their life forms through Anne-Lys's magic. They shared the lives of tens of thousands of people. If anyone wanted to kill any of them, he would have to kill those tens of thousands of ordinary people first. But who could do this? "It's such a big tone to make the world my enemy," a voice sounded in the darkness, calmly. "Who do you think you are?" Anne-Lys was stunned at first, because no one had spoken to her like this for a long time. Then, she opened her mouth and wanted to say something, such as promising benefits, or words of delaying time. However, she couldn't make any sound. A man walked out of the darkness. He was wearing a black robe, and the color was as dark as the night. He raised his hand, and Anne-Lys flew up immediately. Her body flew into his hands obediently, and her neck was pinched and her throat was held. "Do you feel it?" he asked. Anne-Lys nodded in panic. She did feel it. There was a force flowing through her body, starting from her throat, through her shrunken heart, her empty stomach, and her lungs that had long since ceased to function. Then it continued down, down, all the way to the soles of her feet. "Do you know what this is?" The man smiled calmly. Suddenly, Anne-Lys knew one thing. She was allowed to speak, but only one sentence. She immediately said a sentence like a bamboo tube pouring bends. "Is that your magic?" "Correct." The man nodded at her and asked softly, "Do you know what I will do next?" The magic began to tighten, like a rope, trapping her. But this rope was not around her hands, feet or neck. It was around her bones. "No," Anneliese screamed. "No, no, no. This shouldn't be my ending. Stop. You. Ah, God. It hurts. You're tearing me apart. Feel it well. Anneliese." The man whispered in her ear, and at the same time increased the force a little. "I want you to feel it well. Understand?" The pain still bloomed on her face, but she began to follow his words involuntarily. Her brain immediately began to feel the pain well, and at the same time, the man's narration continued. "I will tear your bones out of your body bit by bit, completely." Imagine the picture. Anneliese. "Then your soul. Yes. I will tear your soul out of your pathetic brain and turn it into ashes. In the end, there will be nothing left of you." Why, Anneliese asked in the midst of the pain that came like a tide. "Why did you do this?" "Because you did something wrong, and you never got punished." "I don't want to say that I am a messenger of justice, but I feel very disgusted with what you did. You trafficked in people to get money for yourself. You deceived those late-coming warlocks, and devoured their power, memory and talent with your dirty peers. You even connected a dirty chain of interests in the whole world. Amazing. Let's use your logic to solve this problem. Anneliese, I read your memory, so don't refute it in your heart. Mortals are just playthings, food, and scapegoats, right? And the reason you have this confidence is that you are better than them." Then, the man's mouth curled up a cruel smile. "I am better than you. I believe you should understand what the second half of my sentence means, right? It hurts so much there is no place in her body that doesn't hurt. Bones, nerves, and even muscles." Anneliese felt that she was going crazy, or maybe she was already crazy. However, her mouth opened by itself, and she said a word with her trembling vocal cords. "Yes, I understand." The next second, Shenyan pulled out a complete skeleton. He threw it on the ground, and the darkness dissipated, revealing a pile of corpses. Francesca, who was standing in front of the two golden doors, stared at him blankly, with fear still on her face. Chapter 577 Waste of Talent. The sea breeze blew, the dark clouds were blown away by the breeze, and the moonlight overflowed on the cliff. Shenyan stood in front of the cliff with his hands behind his back, looking at the scenery below, and said calmly, "You are not good at learning, Ms. Francesca. You shame the skills I taught you, and you can be bound by a piece of clothing." They were far away from the hall full of corpses, and the elf's expression became much calmer. But when she heard this, she blushed for a moment. Simple shame is often the most likely to make people make mistakes in their words. She stuttered and said, I was just careless for a moment." "Yes, careless for a moment." Shenyan nodded. "You were careless for a moment and put yourself in danger. You were careless for a moment and almost got yourself killed. You were careless for a moment, almost let a group of crazy wizards who lost their bottom line get my memory." He turned his head and showed Francesca not only his profile, but his whole face, and the expression on that face was extremely indifferent. "Have you continued to meditate after leaving Andrea's class in my magic tower?" "No. In 1250, I passed this skill to you, Ms. Francesca Findleby. It is now 1264. Your beauty has not been damaged by time, and it has even become more beautiful, but your magic power has not improved at all." 14 years. Shenyan stared at her, as if looking at a body with only appearance. "I am really disappointed." The female elf's face turned from green to white, and Shenyan shook his head and stopped paying attention to her. Saving her was just a matter of convenience, just like taking some memories he needed from her brain. After a while, she whispered, "It's true that I neglected to practice, but I just didn't meditate. I have practiced other spells." "Of course, otherwise you wouldn't have been invited by them to join the so-called core organization of the Warlock Brotherhood, right?" There was a sneer on Shenyan's face. "Although I can task everyone to stay away from the world and politics like me, your enthusiasm for it really surprises me, Ms. Francesca. If you are half as passionate about magic as you are about politics, you can kill them all in that hall just now." "You don't understand. Mr. He, the elf sighed after a long silence. I must make myself politically useful so that my compatriots will not be killed off bit by humans. My request is simple. I just want the elves to have a city again. A city with only elves. Compared with our previous identity, I don't think this request is excessive. Stop. Shenyan raised his hand. I'm not interested in listening to your pity and I don't care. In fact, I'm not here to save you, so you can let go of the idea of devoting yourself to me. Are you reading my mind again? No, I just saw it from your right hand, which is always ready to pull down your clothes. I'm not interested in you. In fact, my elf allergy hasn't healed yet. Let me be honest, Francesca. First of all, he didn't call her miss. You have no idea what the knowledge I taught you can do. Compared to it, your so-called political demands are just a pile of shit. Shenyan said bluntly and vulgarly. You really have water in your brain, and the water has not been discharged yet. Do you think I am disappointed that you did not continue to meditate? No, I am disappointed in your vision. You could have gone further, but you turned yourself into a mortal who is in cahoots with the secular world. Why waste your talent? He shook his head, opened a portal and left. Francesca was left standing there alone, holding her skirt, doubting her life. At first, she doubted whether her beauty was still attractive to men. Otherwise, why was he not tempted at all? However, Shenyan's last words echoed repeatedly in the elf's mind. Yes, why waste your talent? She lowered her head and bit her lower lip. Suddenly she realized how wrong it was for her to spend 14 years trying to climb to the upper elves of the Warlock Brotherhood and attend the King's Court banquets. Just as Shenyan said, she is indeed wasting her talent. Shenyan did not choose to go back to the inn directly. What was happening in Novigrad could not escape his eyes. There was a war going on there, and judging from the trend, ordinary people were about to win. Tomorrow morning, the councillors, the mayor and the king would be surprised to see a piece of intelligence presented by the intelligence officers on their desks. The councillors would be afraid, the mayor would panic and report to the king. As for the king, he would be angry and afraid at the same time. Thinking of this, he smiled. The wizard floated on a mountain peak, far away from human habitation. There were wolf howls coming from the forest under his feet. The moon was bright tonight, and the wolves were expressing their emotions. Wolves always howl at night, which is their way of connecting and communicating with each other. And on nights when the moon appears, they will howl louder. After all, this is a world with werewolves. Shenyan sat down cross-legged, turned to his right hand, and the blue gem appeared in his palm again. How long will it take? He looked at it closely and turned it over carefully. The gem immediately began to surge with turbulent waves, as if it contained an entire ocean. In fact, if you want to call it an ocean, it is not wrong. It is just that you have to add an adjective in front of it. It is a sea of time. The mage was bound by magic, allowing his mental tentacles to roam in it, looking for a specific time, a time that would allow him to achieve his goal. 1240 BC, he silently recited the coordinates, his eyes piercing through the sea of time and echoing inside the gem. Half of the blue gem had turned black, and this change made him sigh. The speed was too fast. Once the gem turned completely black, he might have to give it up, otherwise, the turbulent sea of time inside would break through the barrier that formed the gem. By then, a large number of people or creatures who suddenly returned to their ancestors would appear in this world. Then he would be to blame. Imagine mammoths suddenly appearing in the city, humans degenerating into what they were like when they first arrived on the continent, giant trees suddenly appearing on the ground, and the air once again filled with poisonous spores. TSK, if that's true, then this place should probably notify the Empire to come. Although it doesn't take much time to condense the second gem, he has to start calculating again. Thinking of this, the wizard exhaled irritably. Damn, I wish I had the time stone, he muttered to himself. Strange, you lucky bastard. Chapter 578. Strange, don't Q. Generally speaking, there are 3 ways to travel through time. The first is the simplest, which is to find a time turbulence somewhere through a search spell, and then enter it. Of course, the consequences of using this method are also foreseeable. You can't know which time point you will be thrown to, whether it is the past or the future. You may come to 1,000 years later in an instant, or just jump forward 1 minute. The gap is as big as a hippopotamus's front teeth. The second is more difficult, but it is also a bit guaranteed. It is still to find a time turbulence somewhere, and then start calculating on the spot. Find the time node you want to go to, and then test step by step to ensure that you can come back after going. The process is cumbersome, but if successful, you will definitely be able to go back and forth. This is also the most commonly used time travel method for wizards. The premise is that a certain horse face must be removed from this list, and he does not need to calculate or worry about not being able to come back, as long as he is in a world with countless superheroes and villains. As long as he holds the time gem, he can play however he wants, unless he is really stupid enough to collapse the timeline. However, Shenyan still believes in Strange's intelligence, although he has the same bad taste in beards as Tony Stark, and likes to wear his cape outside with a sweater or shirt inside. And he always likes to bring up Shenyan's name to intimidate aliens and other dimensional creatures when talking to them. But he has normal intelligence, and normal person certainly won't do things that will lead to a time paradox. As for the third method, which is the one Shenyan is doing, it is quite special. The first thing I want to introduce to you is the concept of the Sea of Time. We all know the timeline, right? Simple, clear, and easy to understand. Even the moment you see this word, you can understand what it is. But what about the Sea of Time? The answer is actually very simple. Everything in the world, whether it is a creature, an object or even a natural phenomenon, in the mysterious concept, they all have the existence of time. For example, lightning. It existed in this world before humans appeared. Therefore, from the concept of lightning, the mage can extract a fairly long timeline, even enough for him to trace back thousands of years. But this is not enough. Far from enough. The timeline is an extremely complicated existence, and saying timeline is just a brief statement. Life is not straightforward, and neither is time. No one can fully describe what he has been doing at every time since he was a child. For this reason, he does not need a long enough timeline. What he needs is thousands of timelines that can reach 1240 BC at the same time, and then pass through them and lay anchors so that he can travel back and forth freely. Of course, this is purely a last resort. This world runs stably, and there is no time turbulence at all. Shenyan can't create a time turbulence out of thin air for himself. That thing can't be locked in a gem. Calm water and violent tsunamis are not the same thing. Thinking of this, Shenyan stood up. It's nothing more than continuing to calculate. He has time and patience, and what he has to do is simple. Wait. Geralt was also waiting, just waiting for the waiter to serve the food. He originally thought that he was short of money, so he simply ate less or went out to eat. He should not be able to afford the consumption of this high-end hotel. As a result, when he asked about the price of the dishes, the waiter told him politely that the money had already been paid. Has the money been paid? Yes, sir. Our inn is different from other inns. If you decide to stay, then you don't need to spend any more money on meals or even washing. Hearing this, the Witcher's eyes lit up. He immediately thought of a very serious matter, but before he could ask, the waiter seemed to see through what he was going to say next and threw out a sentence. But, sir, the brothel on the second floor is not included. If you want to go there to have some fun and find two beautiful and sensible ladies to spend an unforgettable night, you have to bring your own money. However, our store does offer discounts. If you stay in our store, they will give you a 20% discount. Ahem. I'm just asking. At that time, Geralt said this very embarrassedly, but the waiter didn't make him look bad. He quickly bowed slightly and left, apparently going to the kitchen to serve Geralt dishes. The decoration style of the lobby on the first floor is very special. Unlike the common style of hanging paintings or tapestries on the walls, the things hung here are things like deer antlers or cow horns. The upper half of the wall is made of birch wood, and the lower half is mahogany. A huge stove crackles in the center of the hall, and there is a roasting oven on it. Yes, they also provide roasted whole pigs or whole lambs. Sitting in his chair, Geralt sighed slightly. Damn it, is the life of rich people so boring? The waiters are polite, well-dressed, and clean without any peculiar smell. There is no mud or urine smell on the floor, and no one will bring in a dog. let alone someone who walks in with cow dung all over his body. The food is clean, and even the bowls and tableware look brand new. He no longer needs to wipe the stool with a rag to prevent the suspicious things on it from touching his butt. High-end, really high-end. Just when he was emptying himself, a person came to the opposite side of him and sat down quietly. Who else could it be but he? Shenyan. You killed? No. Are you done? Geralt originally wanted to ask him directly if he had finished killing, but considering that there were several tables of guests dining nearby, the Witcher changed his words. Hearing this, the wizard nodded slightly and showed a not-so-peaceful smile. The matter is resolved. Next, it depends on whether the elf lady I rescued on that island has a brain. Why do you always run into elves? Wait, island? Since he asked this, Geralt would definitely not give up today if he didn't explain the matter again. Anyway, he had to wait for the food to be served, so he told him. Shenyan spent 5 minutes telling him what he had done, who he met there, and what happened. Francesca, is that the elf woman we met in Sintra more than 10 years ago? Yes, that's her. If she is smart enough, the destruction of the so-called reckless organization should bring her considerable benefits. At least her political demands can be fully realized, the wizard analyzed calmly. She said she wanted to build a city where only elves exist. Based on my understanding of your geography, the Valley of Flowers is quite good. Oh, the food is here. He nodded and smiled at the waiter, and gestured to the demon hunter who was still waiting for the next words. The latter reluctantly picked up the knife and fork, took only one bite of the food and asked him to continue. Hurry up. You can't always tell only half of the story. I'm really afraid of you. At least let me eat 2 bites. I got off work late, so the update was a little late. It's really terrible that I don't have any manuscripts saved. There are still 2 chapters. Chapter 579. You deserve to die. Geralt knew where the Valley of Flowers was. There were few places in the world he had not been to. As a demon hunter, if you want to make money, traveling around the world is basically a mandatory requirement of the profession. It's like a prostitute has to wear a low-cut top and a chef has to know how to use a spatula. You can't make money by staying in one place. Monsters can only be killed once, and they are not like crops that can pop up from the ground once a year. If you can only make 200 crowns a year, Geralt might as well change his career and become a hunter. A good deerskin can be sold for about 12 crowns in Novigrad today, and a water ghost is only 3 crowns. What the hell? His thinking just gave Shenyan time to eat a few more bites. The ribs on his plate were quite good. The chef in this restaurant is very skilled, at least better than Geralt. Demon hunters always roast meat on the road until it is almost burned, which is not only hard to bite, but also very unpalatable. The wizard swallowed a mouthful of ribs and began to continue what he had not finished. The Valley of Flowers, also known as Dal Britannia. Allow me to interject my personal opinion, Geralt. What were these kings thinking? They took away the city and land of the elves, so they should at least change the name, right? It's ridiculous that they claimed that this city has belonged to humans since ancient times, but they didn't even change the name given by the elves. Geralt replied with a dry sense of humor. The kings may not have realized this at all, they just thought the name sounded nice. Anyway, you know it, and I know it too. That place is perfect, isn't it? Dal Britannia belonged to the elves a few centuries ago and was later occupied. It now belongs to the kingdom of Aedirn, but even so, there are a lot of elves living there. Yes, although they have been tirelessly running out of the valley to harass humans and rob farmers and their money. At this point, Geralt shook his head. What's going on? You rob me, I rob you? That's how the world works. The wizard threw out a religious joke. There is a god called God in my hometown, Geralt, and his followers claim that we are all molded in his image. So, if he really exists, he must be the biggest robber in the world. The demon hunter almost choked on the noodles he ate. He coughed and drank half a glass of water, then motioned Shenyan to continue. Anyway, if she is smart, she will start from here. But the current king of Aedirn is Demave III, who hates elves so much that he can't negotiate with Francesca, especially to divide a part of his existing territory and give it to the elves. But you just said that if she is smart, her political demands can still be realized? Yes, it can be. The wizard nodded slightly. And Geralt looked at him expectantly. Admittedly, anyone can express their opinions on politics, but there are very few people like the wizard who can explain everything to you in detail, especially since he is still eating now, and it is perfect to use this kind of thing as a pastime. Looking at his eyes, Shenyan smiled helplessly. The recluses are obviously the people behind the Sword Core. They fit my guess perfectly. They are a group of mages who have lost their bottom line, have a long lifespan, and need ordinary people as consumable materials to maintain their immortality. In the process, they can also enjoy the benefits of human trafficking. His voice was light, but with a weight that came from nowhere. The Sword Core has continued to spread all over the world, and the hypnosis in their minds will not disappear with the death of that group of people. This means that this evil business and profit chain will continue to spread, and this will become the heaviest card in Francesca's hand. Geralt, let me ask you a question. How many mages are there in the king's courts? How do I know? Just take a guess and say a number. How many do you think there are? The Witcher was silent for a while, and threw out a number uncertainly. 3? At least 3. Almost. Geralt, a mage serves as a staff member, a mage serves as a magic consultant, and a mage provides various magical items as help. In short, the king and the mages seem to be bound together. Shenyan cut another piece of ribs and put it in his mouth and chewed slowly. Then, he said, except for the recluse, the Brotherhood of Warlocks now has 2 governing bodies. One is the Guild of Gifts and Arts, also known as the Coven of Wizards. 5 mages are appointed as members, and they require all mages to pledge allegiance to the coven and act according to the law. Those who refuse to comply will be regarded as enemies by everyone. The other is the Supreme Council of Warlocks. Generally speaking, the Supreme Council is more focused on academics than the Coven of Wizards. The Supreme Council is also composed of 5 members, and together with the Guild of Gifts and Arts, it constitutes the 2 major governing bodies of the Brotherhood of Warlocks. He spoke eloquently, as if he were one of the members. All those so-called recluses I killed were once members of these 2 associations. Just imagine, Geralt, if someone revealed the matter of the Sword Core and completely exposed the things behind it, how serious a blow would it cause to the reputation of the mages? Geralt almost laughed out loud. He raised his hand. You know I'm not targeting you. You're different from them. But, forgive me for being frank, most of the mages I know, their moral standards match their severely damaged reputation. That being said, the Warlock Brotherhood can't sit idly by. Francesca can use this as a bargaining chip to force the Warlock Brotherhood to help her. I believe that those mages who are like fish in water and the King's Court will not give up their status. In order to cover up this fact, they will definitely help Francesca with all their strength. Or kill her, Geralt said. I don't think they will listen to an elven sorceress. Elves, plus a sorceress. Those male mages may just treat her as a vase. Did she? Shenyan smiled meaningfully. I once gave her a treasure, Geralt. Instead of cherishing it, she threw the gem into the sea and turned and walked towards the land. She is a mermaid and should be able to roam freely in the sea by nature. Enough, enough. The demon hunter interrupted him helplessly. Stop talking in riddles. Just tell me bluntly, what do you want to do this time? You are ruining my little fun. Geralt, forget it. Shrugging, Shenyan said, they will most likely choose the latter option you threw out, which means that in the next period of time, my apprentice who is not an apprentice may face the pursuit of mages all over the world. Why do I feel that you sound very happy? Is it so obvious? If she can't deal with these crappy third-rate trash, then she deserves to die. Shenyan said grimly, and then finished the last bite of ribs. There are more 4K ones. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 580 Hawthorne's Death. Is it that serious? Geralt was a little surprised. He rarely saw Shenyan judge someone so coldly. I taught her my spellcasting method, from meditation to the basic application of spells at all levels, and even how mental power should work, completely when we met last time. So, if she really can't deal with them, Shenyan made a gesture. then it's better for her to die. Geralt, isn't she your apprentice or something? That's just a deal. Apprentice? She can't be considered my apprentice. Andrea is my apprentice, and she has all the talents to be a wizard. She is patient, confident, and has a high talent for spells. At the same time, with all these talents, she also has the most basic empathy as a human being. Is she that good? That's right. Shenyan nodded heavily. It's no exaggeration. Geralt, in the future, you will see her name in history books, believe me. Okay, let's not talk about your apprentice who can't be better. What if this Francesca survived their pursuit? What does it have to do with me? Shenyan spread his hands. The deal between me and her was completed long ago. Saving her this time was just a matter of convenience. In fact, if I wanted her dead, I would kill her too, but there is no need. He shook his head. She is just a poor person who doesn't know what she is pursuing. Everyone has their own aspirations. I can't force her to pursue the true meaning of magic like me, but she can't bury what I taught her. If she survives, she will have everything. If she dies, she will have nothing. It's very simple. That's it. Geralt looked at him strangely. After a long time, the demon hunter also shook his head. Your attitude towards outsiders and apprentices is really different. Of course, at noon that day, the riots that broke out in various places in Novigrad were almost quelled. The guards acted very quickly. In this war, they did not let go of any gangsters, except for those Hawthorne's men who actually helped them to wipe out the sword group. All other gangs were wiped out, just like the casino that was burned clean. They also disappeared cleanly. Now, there is only one gangster boss in Novigrad, Alphonse Willie Hawthorne. At this moment, he is sitting opposite Bach Jonas, and the two are sitting face to face, with smiles on each other's faces. I am always happy to see heroes like you who get rid of harm for the people, Captain Bach. Novigrad is lucky to have a guard captain like you. If it weren't for you, the civilians might not know that there are so many abducted people in Novigrad. Same here, Mr. Willie. Merchants and art patrons like you are the backbone of Novigrad. You have many business houses under your command, control the largest auction house in the city, and even a bank. With such money, you can start another Novigrad. Hawthorne smiled, and then, the smile completely disappeared from his face, wiped out. It was as if someone had wiped a circle on his face with an eraser, leaving only the most primitive and calm expression. Let's talk frankly, Captain Bach. I know what you are thinking. You just think that I, Alphonse Willie, started this war in order to kill everyone else so that you can take over and control their business. I can tell you very clearly that if it were just casinos and brothels, I might take over. He stared at Bach Jonas with his hawk-like eyes when he was old, and said word by word, but there is no way I can be a human trafficker. I can swear on my mother's name and on any god you know. I will never fucking do such a thing. So, Captain Bach Jonas, you can go back to report to the mayor now. Tell him that from now on there will be no so-called sword corps and their dirty business in Novigrad. Tell him to be careful and bring more people with him when walking at night, because I know he has taken their money. You really don't take me seriously at all, Hawthorne. Bach called him by his nickname directly, and there was no trace of smile in the captain of the guard's eyes. You said such threatening words to the mayor in front of a captain of the guard? I said it, and if you didn't hear it clearly, I can say it again. Don't pretend to be a hero, Hawthorne, Bach Jonas said with disgust. You are just one of those scumbags, nothing special. You just have an extra bottom line. Do you think you are so noble just because you opened a casino and made others bankrupt, and forced their wives into prostitution? I never considered myself a noble person. Hawthorne faced his accusation calmly. To be honest, Captain Bach, I never thought about it that way. I know very well what kind of person I am. I will go to hell after I die. You don't even need to tell me this. Goddess Melitli will probably smash my filthy soul to pieces. But I tell you, Captain Bach, I am a scumbag. That's true. But you, and this city, everyone should thank me. Hawthorne stood up from the chair, veins bulging on his neck, and the old face turned into a wolf-like appearance in an instant, but his voice was still calm. I was the one who took the lead in stopping the Sword Corps. Captain of the Guards. Ah, Captain of the Guards. Why did you let a scumbag get there first? The scene fell into silence for a while. Bach Jonas clenched his hands tightly, but he said nothing. After a while, he slowly spoke. In this matter, the city should indeed thank you, but this does not change the fact that you are a who am I? I don't need you to remind me. Damn it, Hawthorne suddenly roared. What's wrong with this city? You, Bach Jonas, the captain of the guard. You arrived at the scene 2 hours after the war started. What? You and your patrol guards were all drunk? Need someone to wake you up? It's ridiculous. The gangsters helped you save people. Don't you think it's ridiculous? Do you think I want this? Bach pushed the table away and stood up. He pointed at Hawthorne's nose and said, when the mayor and the councilors all told you not to take action, what can you do? But you found a way. Hawthorne once again made his previous roar seem like a joke. He sat down calmly arranged his clothes, and even lit his pipe. In the rising smoke, he spoke calmly. I don't know why you suddenly changed your mind, Captain Bach, and I don't want to know. I came here just to inform you of one thing. After today, I will officially retire. I will no longer have anything to do with the underworld in Novigrad. Bach stared at his eyes, not understanding what was wrong with Hawthorne. I have to finish this before I die. Hawthorne leaned back in his chair and said calmly, I must find my hometown. Do you understand? I don't have many years left to live, and I don't want to go to hell and have to say my father's name. No, I don't want that. I will leave the city, and you can handle the rest by yourselves. It has nothing to do with me anymore. After I die, I will naturally go to the goddess to atone for my sins. In fact, Captain Bach, I did this 10 years ago. Hawthorne laughed. Do you know who is the biggest philanthropist in the city? The one who gives alms to the poor and distributes free clothes every July. He pointed at himself, then stood up and walked to the door. At the last moment before he left, Hawthorne said, I hope you can make this city better, Captain Bach. At least don't let another person like me appear. I am the child of an artist, and I should have another life. Do you understand? When I was first abducted to Novigrad, I just wanted to live. After saying this, Hawthorne opened the door and left. The next day, a headline appeared on all the major newspapers in Novigrad. It took over the headline that originally belonged to Hawthorne, but the name that appeared on the headline had the same surname as Hawthorne. Cyprian Willie brutally murdered his father. Alphonse Willie. His father is a Novigrad underworld tycoon, known as Hawthorne. It is reported that this incident is probably because old Hawthorne intends to retire from the underworld, but does not intend to pass his position to Cyprian Willie, so this scum killed his father without hesitation. Exclusively reported by Novigrad Axiom. Geralt put down the newspaper, sighing a little, but did not feel sympathy for Hawthorne. He had done so many bad things, and dying at the hands of his own son seemed to be some kind of karma. Sitting on the sofa, the Witcher was shaking his legs happily. Have you read the newspaper? The voice of the wizard came from the inner room. What newspaper? Alphonse Willie is dead. The one I told you about. His son killed him. I don't have any impression. Why are you talking about this? I thought you knew. I don't know everything. Ah, damn it. Shenyan suddenly roared. Geralt, bring me a glass of water, please. The Witcher rolled his eyes and stood up from the sofa. He felt like a servant, but he still poured a glass of water honestly, even though he didn't understand why Shenyan didn't move his fingers to make a glass of water, until he pushed the door open and went in, Vsummer in his beard. Geralt almost screamed. What are you doing? This chapter costs 3k. I can't stand it anymore. I'm going to sleep first. I owe 1k tomorrow. Sorry. Chapter 581. The biggest problem. What is he doing? When the room was opened, what appeared in front of Geralt was no longer the familiar scenes such as beds or tables and chairs, but pure nothingness. Shenyan was floating in it. He sat cross-legged, and the magic power was surging around him, constantly changing, without stopping for a moment. They were storms, lightning, running lions, and whales in the deep sea. They were all things that had existed but disappeared. In that darkness, it seemed that everything existed, but nothing existed. Geralt shuddered uncontrollably. He did not enter the room, but stood at the door, standing at the junction of the ordinary and normal world and the world where Shenyan lived. He said, Please tell me this is an illusion. It's not. Geralt, please throw the cup in your hand. I can't take it now. The demon hunter glanced at his hands, which were gathering brilliance from nowhere, dazzling and breathtaking. So, if you still have the energy to tell me jokes about hands, does that mean you're okay for now? I don't know what you're doing, but the place you're in doesn't look good. After saying that, he gently threw the cup of water in. The cup began to float freely in the dark void. Geralt stared at it. The glass reflected blue light, and for a moment, he saw his face. I don't know how long it took, a year, or 10,000 years. Anyway, the cup floated in front of Shenyan. He lowered his head and bit the edge of the cup with his teeth, then raised his head and took a small sip, which made him close his eyes. Finally, the wizard sighed with satisfaction. I've been here for 731 years, Geralt, and finally I have a sip of water to drink. Can't you make a glass of water yourself? I don't have extra energy, Geralt, but you can hear me calling you. Yes, because I fixed a reality anchor in the living room. What the hell is a reality anchor? The Witcher crossed his arms, leaned against the door, frowned, and asked, let's not talk about the thing you mentioned, but you were only in there for a day. If my perception is correct, you were only in there for 24 hours, maybe less. That's your perception, Geralt. The wizard touched the cup lightly with his chin, letting it float away. The light from his hands became more intense, and then Geralt noticed that he held a gem in each hand. They seemed to be dyed into absolute black. In my perception, I have been calculating here alone for 731 years. Sometimes what you see is not necessarily true, Geralt. There is nothing strange about it. Just like when you look up at the stars at night, their light reaches your eyes. Do you think they are still alive? No, what you see are corpses all over the sky. Shenyan said in a cold tone. Starlight is the relic of the stars, floating in the universe. When it falls into your eyes, the star may have died long ago. The tone of your speech now makes me a little creepy. After saying this, Geralt noticed that Shenyan raised the corners of his mouth, but only for a moment. He seemed to want to smile. Of course, it might just be that Geralt saw it wrong. Who knows? I'm a little creepy myself, Geralt. Shenyan sighed. I've been in this damn place for too long, and I didn't really want to do this. But you did. Yes, I constructed a pocket dimension and locked myself in it to calculate for 731 years. And I still haven't gotten a result. Pocket dimension? Excuse me, but the place you're in looks like a prison. A dark prison. You mean the black background? Shenyan laughed. They are actually gems, Geralt. At least they used to be. Gems? Geralt frowned again, and he looked carefully at the deep black. But he could only see nothingness, nothing else. Until he was completely calm, completely. His eyes gradually turned from concentration to obsession, until this time, Geralt finally saw it. Indeed, they were all gems. Countless black gems, from the top of the wizard's head to his feet. This neat place that used to be an inn-room is now completely filled with black gems every inch, without a single gap, and it looks perfect and seamless. The most important point is that each gem gave him nothing but death. Geralt was familiar with death, ever since he was a child, training on the Slayer Road in Kaer Morhen. At that time, 3 or more children broke their necks every day on that damn road. When he was a little older, he was in the Trial of the Grass. At this time, he saw what it meant to die a painful and slow death. Those of his age would often die in a state of disfigurement and wailing. The screams would last for a while, sometimes a week, sometimes 2 days. We can say that he and death are old friends, but the thing in the gem still scared him half to death. Geralt clutched his arm, goosebumps rising from the surface of his skin, and of course, there was a chill that ran from his tailbone to his brain. Sometimes you can really scare me half to death. Geralt shook his head. So, what's going on with the gems? Do you want a poetic description, or a realistic one? Just a straightforward one. The gems contain hundreds of millions of dead timelines, Shenyan said lightly. The lines converge into rivers, and the rivers converge into the sea. Then they disappear. And you still gave a poetic description. My problem is the same old one, my friend. But the real problem is, Shenyan put down his crossed legs and stood on the ground. In an instant, whether it was the storm, the lightning, or the lions and whales, they all disappeared, and with them disappeared the black void. The room was back, clean, tidy, and ordinary hotel room. Shenyan stood in it, looking tired. The blue magic gradually disappeared, and his robes no longer fluttered, but his hands were still holding two gems that were turning into black. The real problem is, he sighed tiredly, I can't find that damn time anchor, Geralt. That's the biggest problem. Chapter 582 A Short Rest. Time anchor? Geralt never understood the strange terms that came out of Shenyan's mouth. Just like the reality anchor he mentioned before, and the pocket dimension, this thing called time anchor also confused him. Of course, there are also those gems containing the Sea of Time. Yes, time anchor. Shenyan nodded. You can think of it as a fisherman going out to sea to fish. They will look for a place on the sea that looks like there are a lot of fish, or there are indeed a lot of fish. Then they will cast their nets there. For me, the time anchor is where I fish. I have to find this anchor in the Sea of Time and then pass through it. He raised his right hand. Go back to 1240 BC, back to the moment when Eilini and the elves just came to this world on the white ship. Yes, this is my plan. Crazy, right? Shenyan smiled, but Geralt didn't. The demon hunter didn't laugh, still standing there with his arms crossed. Although I know nothing about these things, you are obviously a little too tired. Tired? I'm fine. You look like a drowning man. Holding a straw from nowhere. You are the strongest and smartest person I know. Before today, I thought you would never be stumped by anything, but I was wrong, Geralt said slowly. Listen to your old friend for once. Find a place, or do something, and relax yourself. You have just experienced 731 years of endless calculations. I don't know how you endured it, but if it were me, I would definitely go crazy. Okay, the wizard smiled. I think I do need a rest. Everyone has a different definition of rest. Some people like to do nothing and play games all day, while others like to lock themselves in a dark room and sleep all day. Everyone is different. And what about Shenyan? What is his definition of rest? Maybe Tony Stark can give you an answer. I have to say, Tony, you look much better after shaving your head. Seriously? Each of you has to give some opinions on my new look. Sitting in the hamburger shop, Tony touched his bald head depressedly. First, my daughter said I looked like Heisenberg, and I didn't even know who Heisenberg was. I thought he was a historical figure. I asked Jarvis to check it out for me, and it turned out to be a fictional drug lord. Then Hawkeye, that bastard, saw me at a party 2 months ago and pointed at my nose and said I was Max Payne. Damn, it's as if no one has played that old game before. Shenyan had a smile on his face. He changed into a more sociable outfit, an ordinary jacket and jeans. At this time, he and Tony were sitting in a hamburger shop eating American hamburgers. Tony Stark may have a bad taste in other places, but he definitely has his own unique insights on junk food. For example, the restaurant he is recommending now has a 3-layer signature burger. With one bite, you can get cheese, sauce, and juicy fresh beef patties. Every bite is 100% satisfying. So, how long do you plan to stay this time? Tony asked. You've been wandering around, and everyone's complaining that it's so hard to find you. I heard that you took Steve away. Where's he? He's doing a great cause in another universe now. Shenyan nodded at Tony seriously. Very great. In short, as we speak, he may have killed a dozen aliens, or demons, or cultists, or rebellious super soldiers who are about 2 meters and 5 meters tall. What the hell? Nothing, Tony. Let's ignore this question. How old is your daughter? 13 years old. Why are you asking this? Wait, is she 13 years old? Tony suddenly became uncertain. He put down the hamburger in his hand and shouted to his watch. Hey, Jarvis, how old is Morgan this year? 14 years old, sir. I'm really surprised at how indifferent you are to your daughter's age. The voice of the artificial intelligence butler was as magnetic as ever, but with a smile in it. By the way, sir, I think I need to remind you that Ms. Pepper is on our channel. What? Why is she on this channel? Because you ran out to meet the owner of Playboy magazine, Tony Stark, for a month without telling me and Morgan. Pepper Potts' voice came from the watch on Tony's right wrist, with a tenth of hostility. Then, His watch began to project. A blonde woman made up of blue phantoms quickly walked out of the watch. Fortunately, there were not many people in the hamburger shop at the moment. Otherwise this scene would definitely attract many people to take pictures. Sitting next to Tony, Little Pepper Potts looked at Tony Stark, who was sweating profusely, with an unfriendly look. Then, she turned her face and greeted the wizard with a smile. The speed of her expression changed so quickly that he didn't even react. "Hey, long time no see, glad to see you back." "I'm glad too," Shenyan said uncertainly. Pepper smiled at him again, turned around, pointed at Tony's face, and said word by word, very clearly, "You'd better explain this to me clearly, Tony Stark, then we can talk about why you can't even remember your daughter's age. You always make me angry again and again, you bastard." Okay. Tony quickly raised his hands to surrender, and he put on the standard "I am wrong but you have to listen to me first" expression. "It's like this, I want to discuss a business with him, so I went to meet with him." "Talk about business? What kind of business can the boss of Playboy magazine discuss with you? Help you find a dozen international supermodels to go on vacation together?" "I seriously wore new, Tony Stark." Pepper narrowed her eyes. Although it was just a light blue projection and her voice was very soft, it still made Tony extremely frightened. "I swear to God and Morgan, if I see you with another woman on the news, I will keep you from coming home for the rest of your life." Shenyan put down the burger in his hand and smiled with interest. How could a burger be as interesting as this scene? He couldn't wait to see what would happen next. There was more in the evening. Chapter 583 Phone. However, the result was quite disappointing. Tony easily convinced Pepper with his eloquence that he went to the boss of Playboy magazine just to acquire an energy business from him, nothing else. Shenyan didn't believe this. So, after Pepper left, he asked, "Tony, tell me the truth, are you back to your old ways?" "What do you mean by back to your old ways? Don't play dumb. Are you fooling around with those models again?" "Ah, you philandering bastard. When you got married, you swore in front of everyone that you would never have any affairs again. It's only been a few years, how come you stop?" Stop. Tony raised his hand quickly. "I really didn't do anything to let Pepper down." "Well, I did go back to my old ways, but it's not what you think." "I just what?" Tony sighed and touched his bald head. "I just started being Iron Man again." After a while, he didn't get the response he wanted. Tony looked up and asked in confusion, "What about your surprised reaction?" "Why do you feel that I am not surprised at all about my comeback?" "Why should I be surprised?" the wizard asked back. "Indeed, you said you were tired when we met last time, but you can't sit still. I don't think you would stay in the villa so honestly to pick up your daughter from school every day and go fishing in your spare time. You are not that kind of person, Tony." "Then who am I?" "You know it in your heart." Shenyan laughed. "So, why is the owner of Playboy magazine related to Iron Man?" "Although almost everyone knows that Tony Stark is Iron Man now, you must not have met him with your true identity, right?" "Well, this is what happened." Tony sighed and began to explain. Let's go back to 3 days ago. At that time, Tony Stark was sunbathing on his large terrace with his bald head, wearing sunglasses, and a glass of iced sugar-free cola at his side. Life was so comfortable. Of course, if the Diet Cola could be replaced with canned iced Coca-Cola, he would be very happy. Unfortunately, it couldn't be replaced. Pepper gave him a strict order that no carbonated drinks could appear in the house. As for his favorite cheeseburger, well, you can have it once a week. Only once a week. The great inventor, superhero, philanthropist, entrepreneur, Iron Man, Tony Stark is now just a middle-aged man who has to be dragged up by his wife at 6 in the morning to exercise for 2 hours every day and then send his daughter to school. He has no freedom and even has to pay public grain every night. Thinking of this, he sighed. He stared at his belly with resentful eyes. "Dude, where did you come from?" he asked, looking at his belly. "I didn't know you before I was 42, but you suddenly appeared after my 42nd birthday. Damn it, I would rather have a tumor than a belly." His wish was destined to be unfulfilled, and a phone call had already come in. It just happened to cut off the jazz song playing in his headset. "Sir, The call code is from S.H.I.E.L.D. Do you want to answer it? S.H.I.E.L.D.? Why are they looking for me? The United States is gone. Now we go to S.H.I.E.L.D. for help. What else can they do except catching a few ungrateful bank robbers? The helicarrier is gone. Tony sat up from his chair in disbelief. After thinking about it, he chose to answer the call. It was an old friend on the other end. Hey, Tony. Coulson. Yes, it's me. The voice on the other end of the headset was smiling. Long time no see. How are you? Oh my god, we haven't seen each other for 4 years. Coulson. I heard that he went to hell and brought you back? Yes. God bless him. Well, although I guess he doesn't believe in God. Anyway, if it weren't for him, I would still be playing games with the devils in hell. Anyway, Tony. Coulson was silent for a while, and said in a heavier tone, we may need your help. I mean Iron Man. Tony narrowed his eyes. I'm married. Coulson. He said this while sitting on the chair, raising his right hand and pressing the earphone. I also have a daughter. You probably haven't seen her. Coulson. She's very beautiful, a little angel. Do you understand what I'm saying? I understand, but we can only ask you for this matter. Why? Can we have a face-to-face meeting? Coulson's tone was pleading. Tony agreed, and half an hour later, Coulson arrived at the helipad of his villa. He was still the same, wearing a black suit and a good smile, but this time he was somewhat embarrassed. After a brief handshake and greetings, Coulson sat on a chair in the living room and pursed his lips. It's like this, Tony. The United States no longer exists, it's divided, and we all know that this is a good thing. After seeing so many lies, you and I both know that this political system should not exist. Although it's somewhat inappropriate for me to say this, I have to admit that I'm still happy to see those damn politicians become rats crossing the street. Tony nodded expressionlessly. But, Tony. Coulson made a gesture. They are coming back. Do you understand? They want to come back. Everyone is living well. Drugs are no longer circulating, and guns are no longer rampant. The so-called racial discrimination and gender antagonism that they used to cover up class issues have been torn apart by us, and everyone is living a good life. At this time, they are thinking about coming back? Coulson's face was full of indignation. Why? They have lied to everyone for so many years, and so many people have died for their lies. Stop, Coulson. This kind of thing does sound like the work of your S.H.I.E.L.D., although I doubt whether this agency still exists. Wait, are you still called S.H.I.E.L.D. now? We have now merged with SHIELD and established a new department. The name is still under discussion, so I can't tell you now, but our new department aims to eliminate threats at all levels for the world. Tony rubbed his eyebrows. Since he was cooperating with SHIELD, he didn't ask any more questions. But the question is, why did it have to be him? Why did it have to be me? Coulson, if I remember correctly, Hawkeye hasn't retired yet, and neither has Sam. Why did you have to pick a retired old guy like me? Tony pointed to his bulging belly after he sat down. Chapter 584. Tony Stark, the boss behind Playboy. Because they specifically asked for you. Coulson pursed his lips and took out a black rectangular block from his pocket. He turned it over and placed it on the table. The thing fit firmly on Tony's table. With a buzz, it started up. The operational projection was released in an instant, and Tony stared at the projection in front of him without saying a word. Large pieces of text and pictures flashed across his eyes. That's how it is, Coulson said with pain. They would rather destroy everything than not have it. I don't understand where they got those things in their hands from now. What the hell? Tony thought. A bunch of old politicians with no money, no power, and no heart can actually get a nuclear bomb? What kind of joke is this world playing on me? And there's more than one fucking one. So what did they specifically ask me to do? They want you to give a speech. After all, in some ways, you are more of a spokesperson for the American spirit than the captain. I mean, you're rich, Tony. Coulson's words made Tony pull down his sunglasses and glance at him. In order to make sure he could see his disapproving look, Tony deliberately stared at him for a little longer. Then, he said, "Is it a crime to be rich?" Hell. After the disintegration, my company was providing electricity to the entire New York, free of charge, including disaster relief, providing weapons and equipment to the police station, and supporting hospitals. He counted on his fingers and told him everything he had done one by one. I built 8 new public schools in New York, established 21 drug rehabilitation centers, and provided legitimate jobs for those who had to commit crimes because of low living standards. Damn, Coulson. I even donate half of my profits to charities every year, real charities. But why do you make me sound like a capitalist who should be hung on the street lamp and exploit the people? And the spokesperson of the American spirit, Tony's voice became sharp. You don't think this is a good word? Stop, Tony. I'm not targeting you. They call me that. And in fact, their words are quite polite. Coulson carefully raised his hand and placed it on the projection. Let me show you. He slid the projection, and soon, a letter appeared in front of Tony. Dear Tony Stark, you are a world-renowned explorer, inventor, scientist, and respected businessman and philanthropist. In you, the American courage and the pursuit of freedom and truth are undoubtedly embodied. We did do wrong things, that's true, but we still have a chance to turn everything around, don't we? Our people are facing threats from that country at all times, but we still have a chance. Okay, no need to read. After reading this, Tony made a decisive gesture. When I see this, I know they haven't changed at all. Coulson, damn, what's wrong with these bastards' brains? That country didn't start a war in Afghanistan, didn't force those poor people in the Middle East to become terrorists, and didn't treat Mexico as a drug-making company. He wanted to say more, but suddenly stopped and sighed. I can't believe it, Coulson. We used to live under such an idiotic government. Tony muttered to himself. And we thought it was okay. Every penny paid by taxpayers was taken away by those bastards. The people at the bottom are suffering. New social problems arise every day, and what they discuss most often is how to use domestic civilians for human experiments. Stop talking, Tony. Coulson pursed his lips again. Let's talk business, shall we? They've asked you to give a speech on TV and use your influence to force all continents to hold another referendum on whether to become one. Otherwise, they will detonate all the nuclear bombs. How many in total? 12. Tony cursed. Do you know where they are hidden? No idea at all. I suggest you check the databases of agencies like the FBI and CIA. It's useless, Tony. In fact, as we're talking, we have people patrolling all continents. The letter you saw was sent a week ago, and we've been searching for a whole week, but found nothing. Doesn't this mean they are bluffing? Tony asked puzzledly. There are 17 technical advisors in the SHIEA, and each of them is similar to me. You are combined together, and you have my technical support. Logically, nothing should be able to escape your search. We can't gamble, Tony. Coulson said patiently. Yes, based on the current situation, they have an 80% chance of 97.8%. Well, 97.8%. Even if there is such a high probability that they are bluffing, we can't relax. We can't gamble with countless lives. And this is the most critical issue, Tony. Although there is a high probability that they are bluffing, but, Coulson pursed his lips, we have no idea where this letter was sent from. We can't even find where they are. Do you understand? Tony blew a long whistle. He stood up from the chair and raised his middle finger to the ceiling. What are you doing? I'm paying my respects to them, Coulson. After all, if what you said is true, they might be monitoring me somewhere. How could these guys still have this kind of technology after the disintegration? It seems that you didn't enjoy all the most advanced technology at that time. Well, whether they have nuclear bombs or not, I just want to say one thing. The frivolity disappeared. His back was straight, and Tony spoke with a serious face. I told Coulson, it's impossible. In the hamburger shop, Tony said bluntly. You want me to give a TV speech and be the guy who incites everyone's emotions? I won't do this kind of thing that will be mentioned in history books. I'm not an idiot. Besides, a lot of people already hate Iron Man. He lowered his head a little dejectedly. I don't want to make more people hate Tony Stark. What about the nuclear bomb? Shenyan asked softly. Like Coulson said, what if the nuclear bomb is real? What would you do? Damn it. That's why I went to meet with the owner of Playboy magazine. Tony let out a breath of annoyance. You don't know. In fact, I acquired that magazine 10 years ago, and the owner is not a real person. He is a bionic robot I created. I have a secret laboratory under the building of Playboy magazine, where I have my best experimental equipment. If I need the most efficient scanning device in the world, I have to stay in that laboratory for 10 days or half a month. The tone of his voice was as if he was sure that he would create the most efficient scanning device in the world after he went in. Shenyan couldn't help but smile. He liked this trait of Tony Stark. He was very similar to him. That kind of unconcealed self-confidence is actually loyalty to one's own ability. What are you laughing at? Tony asked in confusion. Nothing, Tony, just some sighs. Okay, let's put aside the fact that you are actually the boss behind Playboy magazine. I don't want to ask you why you put the best experimental equipment under the Playboy building, but I can't tolerate this happening under the watchful eyes of a camouflage wizard. He stood up and walked out of the burger shop with Tony. They turned into an alley, and a portal opened in front of them. Behind them was the Holy of Holies. Strange, wearing a casual shirt, was holding a cup of coffee and looking at them in shock. Oh, how are you, Strange? Tony walked in with a smile, and looked at the antique bookcases and some mysterious things curiously. He walked to a display cabinet and reached out to fiddle with something similar to an incense burner on it. This action immediately attracted Strange's angry glare. Tony Stark, take your hands off that incense burner. I bought it online. Wait, what? Tony almost thought he had heard it wrong. He looked around, his face full of disbelief. Dude, what's wrong with you? You are a wizard, the Sorcerer Supreme. He doesn't have this title. Look at where you live, the Holy of Holies. Look at this cabinet, how beautiful and charming it is. And you put an incense burner you bought online on it. Yeah, what? Do you have any objections? Strange gave him an impatient middle finger, then looked at Shenyan with a complicated expression. I noticed that you have magic running all the time, Strange said softly. Are you in any trouble? Not really. Shenyan smiled and didn't tell him about his lonely 731 years. There was no need. He just smiled and glanced at the ring on Strange's right ring finger. Married? Yes. Strange smiled embarrassedly. Well, you were not there at the time, but we didn't invite anyone else to our wedding. It was just me and Christine, not even a witness. If you're not here, I don't think anyone can take on this responsibility. Hey, Shenyan chuckled and wanted to say more, but was interrupted by Tony. Can you two stop reminiscing about the past? Tell this horse-faced man who has no taste for beards what happened under his nose as the Supreme Sorcerer, Tony shouted impatiently. I want to throw him into two portals that are constantly teleporting to each other, Strange said to Shenyan with his mental tentacles. No, don't do that. He doesn't have a battle armor on him, and it's a bit unethical to do so. Let's talk about it when he puts on that suit again. The two looked at each other and reached a tacit understanding without making a sound. Strange coughed. So, what happened under my nose? Chapter 585. The Spirit of the Holy Sanctuary. How dare you ask? Tony spread his hands to show his confusion. He even shook his head in disdain, only to realize later that he was bald. He coughed awkwardly twice, then said, You are the Supreme Sorcerer, Strange. Logically, you should be in charge of more than just demons, right? There are no demons in hell anymore. Strange shrugged. Why didn't I tell you? Since he went to hell, it is now empty. There is nothing inside except that it still exists. In fact, Wang is taking people there for a field survey. We want to make that place suitable for new apprentices to train freely. Anyway, there are no living things there, and the dimensions are hard enough. It is perfect for sparring. What? Tony was stunned. What? The second what came from Shenyan's mouth, and he frowned. Commentage has started to recruit students again. Who will be the lecturer? When did you start? How many seedlings are there? Let's solve these problems one by one. Okay. Strange snapped his fingers, and 3 armchairs and an exquisite round table appeared in front of them. There was also tea on the table, which had been brewed and exuded the aroma of black tea. Tony looked at the black tea with a little disdain. Before he opened his mouth, Strange glared at him. Drink it or not. Tony, hey, I'm a guest after all. Is this how you treat guests? Really? I've never seen a guest who complains about the host's taste in decorations as soon as he enters the door. Your taste is terrible, especially after you abandon the goatee and turn to the damn beard. Is this why you keep hating me? What else? We are brothers with beards. Tony pointed at his goatee and said excitedly, you betrayed the beard, brother, traitor. Strange's face twitched and he picked up his cup of black tea, took a deep breath, and then replaced the black tea in front of Tony with a cup of children's milk. Ignoring the latter's shouting, he turned around and began to explain to Shenyan. It's like this, the decision to recruit students was made by me. About 2 years ago, we have too few people, although hell and heaven no longer need to be observed by staff. For some reason, the connection between dimensions has become extremely fragile recently. New dimensional crossing events occur every day. We are seriously short of manpower. There are only 73 Kamartaj wizards who can take charge of a task independently, and we are responsible for the entire Earth. This number of manpower is really insufficient. Every day I even have to use the time gem to slow down my own speed so that I can have more time to power the World Protection Array. The problem of lecturers is simple. Currently, only 42 qualified students have been recruited worldwide, and I don't know how many of them can graduate. Oh, it's really hell. I don't even have time to go on vacation with Christine. He rubbed his brows. In fact, I haven't had a normal sleep for 2 months. I really hope I can switch with Wang. Not long ago, he went to the Arctic to look for a spaceship that had made an emergency landing on Earth, but it turned out to be a large group of vegetative people from Bahulu. You know the Bahulu people, right? How could Shenyan not know? The Bahulus are all plant life forms, but don't get me wrong. They have nothing to do with Groot. These plant aliens have no other hobbies in their lives. They just like to weave beautiful dreams for people. Every time they arrive at a planet, they will take root in the ground and use their special life form to release a special kind of hallucinogenic spores, making all the creatures on the entire planet indulge in beautiful dreams. Other than that, they don't do anything. As long as all the creatures on the planet fall into beautiful dreams, they will be happy and then leave. Quite a strange life form, but how huge is this universe? Don't tell me he got it. He got it. Strange nodded crisply. In fact, it's not just that, he came back with a smile on his face. Damn, I really hope I'm the one who was woven with beautiful dreams by the Bahul people. Shenyan looked at him expressionlessly. Are you serious? Strange shuddered at his gaze and quickly put on a righteous face. Of course not, I was just joking. How can the Supreme Sorcerer rest? Yes, the Supreme Sorcerer who never rests has 12 more nuclear bombs under his nose, Tony said sarcastically while holding his children's milk. What did you say? I said it very clearly. 12 nuclear bombs, right under your nose. Strange turned his head and looked at Shenyan with a questioning look, and the latter nodded at him. After getting the affirmation, he immediately frowned. This is impossible. When the United States collapsed, I marked all the existing nuclear bombs. There were a total of 3,750 nuclear bombs, of which 2,000 were taken away for centralized destruction. They tried to take away the remaining 1,500, but we intercepted them. The more Strange talked, the more he felt that this was impossible, but he knew that Shenyan and Tony Stark were not the kind of people who would joke about such things. So, what went wrong? Shenyan drank the black tea in the cup. Every time Strange used magic to construct anything, there would be a characteristic. The tea would become too sweet, and the food would become too bland. He himself had not realized this problem. He snapped his fingers, and the water overflowed the cup. He drank it calmly and rinsed his mouth. He knocked on the round table twice with his right hand, and the ceiling of the sanctuary immediately began to shine. A faint golden light floated down from the ceiling engraved with history. Few people knew that the sanctuary actually had its own will. The history of its existence is almost as long as the history of the birth of the Sorcerer Supreme. During this long period of time, it has changed its appearance countless times, but its inner self has always remained the same. The golden light slowly condensed and formed a being with a female figure in front of them, but her face was not clearly visible. She seemed to be wearing a long skirt, her arms folded elegantly on her lower abdomen, and her head lowered. After a while, she slowly raised her head. You never told me you could do this? Shut up, Tony, Strange said with a serious face. You are facing the spirit of the sanctuary, The ancient guardian, "Don't be presumptuous." Shenyan slowly stood up from his chair, walked in front of the spirit of the sanctuary, and bowed. "I've never seen him bow to anyone, for God's sake. Tony Stark, can't you just shut up for once? This is a very solemn occasion." Ignoring their whispered conversation, Shenyan said softly, "Hello, Guardian." There are 3 more chapters. Chapter 586, Back to the Old Business. "I haven't heard this title for a long time." The Holy of Holies nodded to him with a sigh. Her voice was light and elegant, with a charm of its own. The language she used was the ancient Mel language, a language used specifically for communication between wizards in ancient times. It was obscure and difficult to understand, but it had another purpose. The ancient Mel language itself can be regarded as a kind of magic at the level of language, which is why it is so difficult. Shenyan smiled slightly. He knew that the Holy of Holies could understand English. It was true that she was sleeping, but she was not completely ignorant of the outside world. In fact, she was most likely speaking the ancient Mel language at this time just to test Shenyan a little. "You have been sleeping for a long time. Please allow me to introduce you to the contemporary Supreme Wizard." He also answered in the ancient Mel language, and the pronunciation of each syllable was impeccable. Hearing this, the blurred face of the Holy of Holies spirit became clear, and there was joy in the eyes that were overflowing with a faint golden light. "Introduce?" The spirit of the sanctuary smiled and said, "Who else can be the Supreme Sorcerer if not you?" "It's incredible. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I would never believe that there is such a powerful and young Supreme Sorcerer." Shenyan's face became strange. He turned slightly to the side so that the spirit of the sanctuary could see Strange. Then, he raised a hand, pointed at Strange and said, "In fact, respected Guardian, he is the Supreme Sorcerer of the modern era." Is this a weird joke? I slept too long and lost touch with the civilized world? Your humor is really weird. The spirit of the sanctuary frowned slightly until Strange coughed awkwardly and then stood up. He also knew Gmul language, so he heard every word of the conversation between the two just now. "Respected Guardian," he said with a wry smile, "I am indeed the Supreme Sorcerer of this generation." The spirit of the sanctuary frowned and looked at him, then looked at Shenyan who was standing beside him, and then slowly shook his head. "I don't quite understand what the previous Supreme Sorcerer was thinking." By the way, who was the previous Supreme Sorcerer? It was Ancient One. She is our teacher. That makes even less sense. The Supreme Sorcerer must always be the strongest person. Can we skip this topic, respected Guardian? Shenyan interrupted her calmly. "My junior brother is doing a good job in his position. He is weaker than me, but that doesn't mean he is incapable of doing the job of the Supreme Sorcerer. I don't think there is a more competent Supreme Sorcerer than him. In addition, there is actually a reason why I awakened you. I hope to reactivate the Sanctuary Great Barrier." "Absolutely impossible," the spirit of the Sanctuary said bluntly. "It's damaged beyond repair." "It's not that I don't want to help you, but it's completely destroyed. In addition, can I ask why you want to activate it again?" "Strange. You explain." Shenyan gave up his seat and sat back next to Tony. While the two of them were talking, Tony asked, "What language did you use just now?" "Jarvis can't analyze anything." "If Jarvis can analyze the results, I suggest you check his database immediately." "That's Gmr, an extremely advanced wizard language that was used specifically for wizards to communicate with each other in the past. It is actually a kind of magic itself." "Damn it, do you wizards have to make up a language even to chat with each other?" "That's not something we made up, Tony." Shenyan gave him a strange look. As soon as he saw his eyes, Tony immediately understood. He sighed. "Well, I guess if I keep asking, you'll throw me some more shocking information to surprise me. So I won't ask. What are they talking about there? And who is this lady? Do you know her?" "To be precise, we just met, Tony. She is the spirit of the Sanctum Sanctorum, the will of the ancient building we are in. She is also one of the oldest guardians of the earth. She is communicating something with Strange now." Shenyan explained to him patiently. "Remember what Strange said just now? The connection between dimensions has become extremely fragile. You are not a wizard, so you don't know how terrible this is. Let me describe it to you." He raised a finger, and a little blue magic emerged on it. Soon it condensed into a miniature earth. He threw the earth into the air, and then condensed another one and threw it into the air. The two operated normally at first, but gradually, there seemed to be an inexplicable attraction between them, and they began to get closer and closer. Little by little, they merged into one, but it was not the gentle kind, but the two collided and destroyed each other. Tony was shocked by the scene and took a deep breath. He knew very well that the black-robed wizard never joked about such things. When the connection between dimensions becomes fragile, this will lead to this situation, Tony. What I just showed you is the worst result. That is, the Earth in another parallel universe will destroy us. But no matter what, we can't gamble. In addition, let Jarvis prepare your clothes. I found the location of those nuclear bombs. What? Wait, Jarvis, prepare MK100. MK100, a small upgrade, nothing to be surprised about. The armor is like an electronic product. If it is not upgraded for 2 years, it will be out of date. Tony smiled, but it was only for a moment. He soon became serious again. Without much nonsense, Shenyan quickly opened the portal, and a small drone flew out of it. A red, gold and silver ring was taken out of its storage compartment by it and placed in Tony's hand. This was a tacit understanding they formed a long time ago. Tony once joked that if Shenyan could keep doing this, he would not need to send the armor to the satellite station in the sky to achieve global transportation. He put the ring on his index finger, turned it gently, and then raised his right hand. Nano quickly covered his whole body like a fluid, and soon he became the Iron Man again. Ah, it feels so good to be back. The mechanical synthesized voice he deliberately kept trying in the sanctuary. So, where are we going next? Mariana Trench. Damn it, where is the nuclear bomb? Shenyan opened another portal, and behind him was the calm darkness, and occasionally a few creatures with light spots swam by. The seawater strangely stopped inside the door, without any gushing out. He turned his head and looked at Strange, who nodded at him, indicating that he would handle this. The wizard smiled. This feeling seemed to bring him back to the past. The feeling of clear division of labor and working together for a goal was good, very good. Come on, Tony. As soon as the voice fell, he and Iron Man stepped into the portal. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 587 Under the Trench. The Mariana Trench is the deepest trench in the world and the deepest part of the ocean known to mankind. High water pressure, complete darkness, low temperature, and lack of food resources. All these factors combined have made this place one of the most hostile areas in the world. Of course, this is only compared to ordinary people. For Iron Man and the Black Robe Wizard, this place is no different from land. Shenyan's body was emitting a faint glow, and the water pressure and the freezing cold sea water were completely isolated. This layer of light was like a natural barrier, and the seawater didn't even have the qualifications to touch the corner of his clothes. Above their heads, a soft white light was hanging for lighting. Tony was not so decent. He insisted on testing the extreme pressure resistance of his MK100, so he is still conducting his own tests. You know, this is 10,909 meters below the sea, and the water pressure is already terrible in this case. Not to mention crushing people to death. Even a tank can be turned into scrap metal immediately. But Tony is still insisting on taking action. Jarvis, adjust the pressure resistance level of the nanomaterial on my back a little higher. Damn, I didn't think of coming here when I designed it. Nanomaterials still have their limitations. I should have brought the diving armor if I had known this. You still have a diving armor? Of course, I even made a suit that can swim in magma. Of course, I've never worn it. Why did you make it if you didn't wear it? Of course it's to kill time. No, I'm kidding. Actually, it's to prepare for a rainy day. I'm a person who pays great attention to planning and future planning. Walking at the bottom of the trench at 11,000 meters, Shenyan glanced at Tony with a weird look. How dare he say such a thing? He wrote a 3-page plan for his wedding, but in the end, he didn't complete even one item. Hey, what's that look in your eyes? I can see it. Then just look at it more, Tony, don't make me tell you what happened at your bachelor party again. Tony immediately shut up knowingly. He would take that matter to the grave. They went deeper and deeper, and the scene on the seabed was not suitable for walking, that's for sure. Not to mention how deep it is here. The gurgling sound of the seawater alone is enough to scare people, not to mention the fish hiding in the dark. Anyway, no one can see each other, so they can grow whatever they want. This sentence is not a joke. Damn it, do all the fish in the deep sea look like this? Tony pointed to a fish that had just passed by them, which was dozens of meters long, black and extremely ugly. The mental tentacles conveyed the surprise in his words exactly. What else do you think it looks like? A square yellow sponge? A big-nosed octopus that can play the recorder? Come on, this is the Mariana Trench, not Bikini Beach. It would be nice if it really looked like that, but you haven't told me why the nuclear bomb is here. I scanned the entire Earth. Shenyan raised his hand and pointed to his temple. At the deepest part of the Mariana Trench, 1,200 meters ahead of us, there is an underwater base. It was built by Nick Fury, but was taken away during the Hydra rebellion in Hedon. Wait. Tony frowned. Don't tell me that Hydra is not dead yet. Of course they are all dead, Tony, but this base is not the US government. No. Some people in the former US government took it over from S.H.I.E.L.D. It must be said that Nick Fury is very concerned about this base. He used alien technology on it. No wonder Coulson and others couldn't find the specific location of the nuclear bomb. Shenyan raised his head and looked forward. There was nothing in the deep and dark seabed. The white light above their heads was still transmitting light source persistently. In such an environment, people would involuntarily start to talk in a low voice. He was the same. But, Tony, Shenyan said softly, they are located 10,000 meters below the sea. How can they transport those nuclear bombs to various continents? Transmission technology? No, this kind of thing only exists in the imagination. I don't think those politicians have the ability to make such a thing. Tony frowned and began to think, throwing out one guess after another. Or did they hide another aerospace carrier privately, and Fury used the same alien technology to hide it? Ah, damn it. I really hate that bastard who is still restless after his death. Tony, expand your thinking a little. Shenyan smiled. Technology may not be able to do it, but what about magic? Former U.S. Senator, Swiftolina, was sitting in her seat trembling. Not only her. A total of 23 politicians who wanted to make America reappear were sitting in their seats and trembling, not even daring to breathe. They were in a seemingly ordinary conference room. A man with a mask and an unclear face sat in the main seat. At his feet, there was a body that was burned to a charred corpse. Take him out, the man said in a hoarse voice. Soon, two black, non-human creatures came in and dragged him out. The moment she saw them, Swiftolina trembled even more. She began to hate her stupid decision a few years ago. The United States was disintegrating, but she was still wealthy. Why did she rush into this muddy water? Now, their lives did not belong to themselves. Mr. Ort, the man spoke again, and the guy who was called out had white hair and a mustache. Hearing his voice, he stood up trembling. The masked man stared at him, with two holes on the black mask, revealing a pair of red eyes. He stared at Ort and said, 10 days have passed, and Tony Stark has not responded to you. To be honest, I am very disappointed. Is this the efficiency you promised? It seems that there is a reason why the United States is disintegrating. That's because don't make excuses, Mr. Ort, the man said softly. I hate it most when incompetent people use excuses to excuse themselves. He sighed. It's always like this. You humans are never reliable. When the time comes, we still need to do it ourselves. The man stood up, walked to the window of the conference room, and stared at the silver corridor outside. With a disdainful tone, even your architectural style is so disgusting, pure silver, seemingly simple, but without the slightest artistic beauty. I can't understand why low-level creatures like you exist. He took off his mask, and in an instant, the light in the conference room began to be swallowed up crazily. Black shadows rushed out of his body frantically, and soon swallowed up the remaining 23 congressmen in screams. He grumbled from his throat, and then put on the mask again. "Tony Stark," he muttered to himself. The first target. Chapter 588, Low Intelligence. Just as he was talking to himself, a monster that was also covered in black and not humanoid pushed open the door and walked in again. It had slender limbs, a flat head, a thin mouth, and two rough protrusions on the top of its head, like eyes. The man opened his mouth and uttered a low hum. If translated, it could be roughly understood as this sentence: "What's wrong? The Lord is urging us." Another 43,000 people died in the home world today. The monster opened his mouth, and the delicate words inside flowed out, and also responded with a low hum, with a sad emotion. The man was silent for a while. "I understand. Let the soldiers get ready. In another 6 hours, we will start the formal operation." "But, Tony Stark, don't worry. I'll deal with him. He's just a human. He can't make any big waves. It's a pity for the original plan. If we can transform him, we can gain his knowledge. That armor will be of great benefit to us." "I understand, General." The monster nodded, turned around and left the meeting room. The man stood there, slowly took off his mask, revealing a face similar to that of a human. That was his disguise, originally used to confuse Tony Stark, but now it was no longer useful, so his face began to slowly deform, until it became the same as those monsters, except that the protrusion on the top was scarlet. His body also began to gradually change, from 1.8 meters to 4 meters high, supporting the ceiling of the conference room. It opened its thin mouth, and high-temperature steam gushed out, even triggering the fire alarm in the room. The preset sprinkler head immediately began to prepare to put out the fire. Being soaked by water, the monster let out an angry roar from its mouth, and then smashed the sprinkler head with a punch. But unexpectedly, more water gushed out. "Your intelligence seems to be a little low, big guy." A mechanical synthesized voice suddenly sounded in the room, and the monster immediately stopped moving. But it didn't have time to do more. A blue beam of light shot out with a dangerous buzzing sound, burning a big hole in its chest. Tony released the stealth mode, whistled lightly, and said in the mental communication channel, "I have to admit, your teleportation combined with my stealth mode is a great assassin." Damn, those French people should make an assassin game with me as the protagonist. "It's not dead yet, Tony. Stop making jokes, and get rid of it." Shenyan's cold voice came from the other end of the mental power, and Tony shook his head helplessly. "He is always like this. As long as he enters the working state, he will be ruthless and terrible, but very efficient." Tony raised his hands again, and the plastic energy beams with a power 4 times stronger than before after the transformation gushed out from the palms of his 2 hands, targeting the monster that was knocked to the ground with a terrifying hole in its chest. But at this moment, it suddenly disappeared. At the same time, a huge force hit him from the back of his head, and in just a moment, Tony smashed the wall of the conference room and flew out. "Jarvis, activate overdrive mode." "Luckily I had planned this." Tony calmly issued orders to Jarvis while being blown away. His nano-armor began to rapidly transform into silver, and 4 jets appeared out of thin air on his back. Within half a second, he changed his body shape in the air, and even completed the transformation before landing. "Okay, big guy. You are fast, right?" Facing his provocation, the monster just looked at him coldly. The burn wound on its chest began to heal at a speed visible to the naked eye. It opened its mouth, and the fine fangs squirmed and were spit out of its mouth, turning into a big sword full of bone spurs. It held it in its hand and said in English, "Come on, Iron Man." Tony raised his eyebrows. He knew who I was, and he even spoke English. "Are monsters starting to keep up with the trend these days?" Tony said in the mental power channel. "Don't make jokes. I am analyzing their soul composition to create a flesh and blood curse specifically for their race in a short time. Kill it quickly, but don't destroy its head. I still have a use for it." Got it, boss?" Tony rolled his eyes. The armor was not controlled by him in the extreme speed mode, and human reaction nerves would only slow down the speed that this mode should have. At this moment, it was Jarvis who was controlling it. A silver light flashed, and in just a short moment, he came to the monster. A dangerous high-energy beam was fired from the shoulder launch port, aiming at the monster's right hand holding the sword. and his hand armor was transforming into a dangerous vibrating blade. In this mode, Tony was confident that he could kill the monster within half a minute. After all, according to the scan, its physical strength was only 4 times that of ordinary steel. After the first millisecond, the high-energy beam attacked its right wrist, and after the second millisecond, the 2 vibrating blades attacked its neck at the same time. However, in the third millisecond, the monster suddenly raised its right hand, blocked all his attacks, and knocked him out at a speed that Jarvis could not catch. Oh, okay. Tony lay on the ground. Now it's fun. The speed mode doesn't work. What other moves do you have? You're just a bug that can only attack by surprise. The monster roared on the spot. You have no chance of winning against me head-on, weak and incompetent. Why do you humans have such a beautiful world? Hey, if you're unhappy about this, I'm sorry, but you can go back and turn yourself into a bunch of single-celled organisms and evolve again from scratch. Tony stood up in the ruins of what used to be the Silver Corridor, and the silver armor was quickly turning into pure red. His mechanical synthesized voice also began to become colder. But, to be honest, you're fucking dead. Really? Do you really think you can kill me? You'll know once you try. By the way, you're so ugly. The fish you just met is cuter than you. Fish? How dare you compare me to a fish? Tony rolled his eyes again and felt a pain in his back teeth. What am I fighting against? Even the Hulk would not be disgusted by this level of provocation. He took a step forward, and the red mode was the power mode. Since the extreme speed didn't work, he changed to a more powerful attack. You like to use swords, big guy? Tony said sarcastically, and raised his right hand. The nano-armor quickly synthesized into a red sword in his hand, and even the armor itself turned into a knight's armor. Come on, duel with me. Chapter 589, Not Politically Correct. Duel? The monster laughed, but Tony's voice was still teasing. Yeah, duel. Just you and me, big guy. But I advise you to be quick. I can't guarantee that my friend will not kill you after he finishes with your kind. I've finished killing, Tony. Shenyan's voice came from above their heads, and the ceiling began to vibrate. Those solid building materials were broken down bit by bit into fine dust in the air. The wizard with red eyes floated down from it, and the corners of his clothes flew. Tony shrugged. Okay, like I said, big guy, here he comes. Aren't you going to fight it? Shenyan asked. I see you seem quite interested. Even your armor has been changed into the style of knight's armor. Come on. My old bones can't stand the torture. Please be kind and kill it with a snap of your fingers. Seriously, this guy is too ugly. Tony looked at the monster with a little disdain. When he saw the 2 scarlet bulges on its head, he couldn't help shuddering. His voice became a little dull, as if he was trying his best to suppress the urge to vomit. Even in those horror movies in the 80s that I have seen, there is no thing as rough as you. The monster was completely enraged by the attitude of the 2 of them not taking it seriously. Its dark skin began to turn red little by little. High-temperature steam once again gushed out of the thin mouth. It raised the bone sword in its hand high and rushed towards the wizard with a roar. To be fair, its speed was indeed very fast. It was even close to the standard of the Flash as walking in another world. But unfortunately, the protective magic circle on Shenyan's body was passively triggered. At the moment when its bone sword was about to touch Shenyan's body, a blue light flashed. Its body was instantly divided into hundreds of equal square pieces. Only the head was still intact. Its head fell on those square pieces, and hot blood spilled all over the ground. It screamed heartbreakingly. Damn it, can't you use more normal means? Have you never seen the alternate dimension killing array? Besides, I used this method because you mentioned the horror movies in the 80s. Of course I have seen it, damn it, but it was a movie in 1997. It's not much different. It's still a cult movie, isn't it? But have you ever thought about having another movie night? I like to get together to watch old movies, and The Conjuring is good. It's great. Tony opened his visor, patted his right shoulder, and a high-energy laser beam shot out, completely burning the monster's shattered body. Jarvis's scan showed that it has a strong regenerative ability, so you have to do things thoroughly to avoid future troubles. Then, he rejected Shenyan very excitedly. No, I absolutely don't want another movie night. He Shenyan hooked his finger, and the monster's head flew behind him. Its screams stopped with a flash of blue light. The wizard smiled and asked, "What's wrong?" "You have the nerve to ask what's wrong?" Tony looked up at him. "Movie night is to watch movies, not for you to cast spells for us to go in and experience it in person." "I went in too. Besides, don't you think it's very interesting to use ordinary people's bodies in the illusion to find wits and courage with those ghosts from the 1980s? "Yeah, it's very interesting," Tony said weakly. "It would be better if you could reduce the pain. I don't want to experience the feeling of being chopped in half by Jason with a machete again." "You are the slowest runner, Tony." "No one was caught by the hockey mask killer, only you. By the way, I remember very clearly that you tried to seduce those female college students at the party in the illusion. How do you want to forget this?" Another movie night. Looking at the smiling He Shenyan, Tony's face turned pale. After a while, he nodded with gritted teeth. "Very good, then it's a deal. Wait for me for a few minutes. I have to scan this guy's brain. It's kinda all low-level soldiers, and there is not much useful information in their brains. Well, but I have developed a flesh and blood curse for them." "Flesh and blood curse?" "Yeah, I think you haven't forgotten what I did to the Charita." It would be strange if he could forget it, Tony thought. The New York battle can be regarded as the first shot of their group of Avengers veterans to make them famous. At that time, He Shenyan was far from being as powerful as he is now. In the brief meeting before the war, they proposed many different plans. He Shenyan's plan was approved by a unanimous vote. He said that he had a way to develop a curse specifically for the biological characteristics of the cheetah people. Considering that this race is good at technology, they have no countermeasures when facing magic. Once this curse is developed, the cheetah people will dissipate one by one. There is no need to use powerful weapons, nor does it require the wizards of Kamartaj to unite to use extremely lethal and destructive spells. If you want to end this war quickly and save more lives, his method is obviously the best, but he needs time, 2 hours. So the Avengers fought bloody battles and exchanged their lives for these 2 hours. He Shenyan did not live up to their trust. 2 hours later, he appeared in the New York sky without any error. With a flash of green light sweeping across the sky, all the cheetah people, even the giant beasts they rode, disappeared. Of course, the master suffered a serious backlash afterwards, and he disappeared for half a year before returning to the Avengers. Can you now develop a flesh and blood curse specifically targeting a race in just a few minutes? Practice makes perfect, He Shenyan answered calmly. Believe me, Tony, you don't want to know how many aliens I killed to prevent the Earth from being invaded. It doesn't matter to me how many aliens I kill, Tony said bluntly. You are from Earth, and those bastards wanted to invade us, and you killed them to save others from disaster and death. If I still condemn you for being too harsh, then what have I become? He Shenyan glanced at him strangely. As an old white man, it's not very politically correct for you to say this. Fuck political correctness. Iron Man cursed unhappily. A bunch of idiots. I've been furious since I knew that Snow White was going to be played by a black person. If the bastards in Hollywood want to show black culture and truly let the world know about black aesthetics, they should create a story from scratch instead of constantly snatching other people's stories. You sound quite resentful. Did you know that after you left, The Lord of the Rings launched a new TV series? That's Middle-earth. Damn it, there are black elves in Middle-earth. I really want to slap the producer twice. Stop it, Tony. The wizard could hardly suppress the twitching corners of his mouth, and gestured to suppress his smile. This guy has a good story in his head. Do you want to hear it? There are still 3 chapters. Chapter 590, Discretion. There are many criteria for judging a good story, but in general, they all involve the things, and even the narrative method can be put aside for now. After all, if the story is not good enough, no matter how brilliantly it is narrated, it is not worth it. And the story in this monster's mind, or its memory, He Shenyan can only describe it in 8 words. A twist. The monster's name is K. Oral Tibulius, a name that is long, weird, difficult to pronounce, and incomprehensible. Its race is the children of the stars. They were born among the stars and are born with a long lifespan. Unfortunately, they are a group of wanderers. They move between the stars by combining together and using their lives as fuel. After wandering for more than tens of thousands of years, the first generation of children of the stars finally found an ownerless planet with conditions suitable for them to live on. They reproduced and lived on it with tears in their eyes, but the good times did not last long. For such a long-lived race, strong reproductive ability is not a good thing. They are very smart, and they are born this way. Each star child has a very strong learning ability, and the level of science and technology is developing rapidly, changing with each passing day. However, their extremely high level of science and technology has not brought any changes to their lives. The first generation of star children who landed on the ground controlled everything. The descendants of the first generation of star children could be scientists, nobles, painters, and any living beings with no worries about food and drink and noble status. Some star children who were born later were instilled with the concept that they were slaves and they were gods by the first generation of star children. Without any preparation, they became slaves, and even their descendants were slaves. This is the case for one life, and it will be the same forever. Grandfather has been a slave for 1,000 years, and his grandson will be a slave for another 1,000 years. The advancement of science and technology has not brought them any benefits. This is very unreasonable, no matter from which angle. Soon, their rapidly developing civilization ushered in a change of thought. Rebellion happened as it should. The lower-level star children soon realized that the high-ranking, first-generation star children who had never died were just like them, and had no noble bloodline to speak of. They were ancestors and forerunners, but that did not mean they could treat their descendants as slaves, or even have the power of life and death. The lies they had been instilling, such as the reason they became slaves was that they could not learn advanced science and technology, they were born stupid, and their bodies were weak, and so on, were broken after the first lower-level star children learned how to make energy weapons. Everything changed. The war began to spread to the entire planet, and countless star children died every day. This was true for both the noble star children and the lower-level star children. Finally, when the death toll of the entire tribe reached 70%, the first-generation star children compromised. They wandered among the stars for tens of thousands of years and ruled this planet for more than tens of thousands of years. They had seen the magnificent sea of stars and the salvos of space battleships. They had seen the death of stars and the birth of natural life. The scene that wandering saw was beautiful, but it was not as good as a stable home. They promised to treat the lower-level star children equally. From now on, no one will be oppressed again, balabola, and so on. We all know that for some people, promises are meant to be broken. Although those lower-level star children are smart, they have been slaves all their lives and don't know this at all. When they laid down their weapons and thought they could get the long-lost equality, the first-generation star children killed them all. As mentioned at the beginning, they have a long lifespan, strong reproductive ability, and high technological level. Therefore, the death of a group of offspring is nothing to be sad about. However, they were one step behind. The star children didn't know one thing. In the dimension where they were born, there was another thing besides the birth of various forms of life among the stars. He was attracted by the huge death on this planet and was moved by the memory of the countless lower-level star children who were full of negative emotions when they died. Resentment and various negative emotions are his food, and he is much more trustworthy than the first-generation star children. The resentment of the lower-level star children included the wish to let the first-generation star children and their descendants die in pain. So he decided to make it come true. He stretched out his hand and brought down destruction. The victorious first-generation star children were horrified to find that there was a dark cloud over the planet, and no matter what method or means of attack, it could not be dispersed. Worse, it even blocked the entire planet, and the spacecraft could not leave at all. The blockade lasted for 500 years. During these 500 years, the environment of the planet began to become worse and worse. At first, there was only no water and no sun. They still had a solution, but later, even food could not be guaranteed, because the soil used for farming had all turned into black mud full of resentful monsters. Not to mention planting, even passing by would be devoured by them. In desperation, The Star Children began to feed on each other's corpses, and of course, there was also a fecal circulation system. They relied on the cycle to persist for 500 years, and under extremely high pressure, the first crazy star child was born. Of course, not necessarily crazy. It took another path, transitioning from technology to mystery. Then, 500 years later, the remaining star children spent 500 years to become a civilization where technology and magic coexisted. This was a good thing, but unfortunately the planet was gradually withering. Although the black cloud floating above the planet did not allow them to leave, it could communicate. From his mouth, the star children learned everything. They did not despair. If the spacecraft could not leave, what about magic? All the wizards among the star children began to do their best to study the teleportation spell from scratch, and it took another 500 years. They are indeed very smart, and it can even be said that they are a little too smart. The teleportation spell was indeed developed, but it was a teleportation spell between dimensions. Then, naturally, they came to Earth. Tony rubbed his eyebrows and sighed. To be honest, I am beginning to doubt whether our world is born unlucky. Why do we always encounter such things? So, what should we do now? Of course, we should go there, Shenyan replied. Then, decide as the case may be. Decide as the case may be. It means, kill them all, or block the connection between dimensions and let them die on that planet. Wow, what you said sounds too villainous. Why don't you save them? They are so pitiful, Tony said with a grin. Glancing at Tony, who was showing off, the wizard shook his head. I am the guardian of mankind, Tony. Save them? I'm not sick. Deal with a group of creatures from other dimensions who want to invade us. He laughed twice. Haha. There are 2 more chapters. I will come back to right after taking a nucleic acid test. There are new cases in Wuhan again. Chapter 591 Mental Pollution. The moment he stepped out of the dimensional portal, Tony Stark was shocked by the scene in front of him. He had seen many scenes that ordinary people could not see, but this was the first time he had seen such a scene. A thick dark cloud hung above the sky, and at first glance it seemed to be just pitch black. But after taking a closer look, Tony immediately felt a strong mental shock. From the rolling and turbulent clouds, he felt an extremely strong hatred that almost drowned him. Fortunately, Shenyan interrupted his gaze in time. Don't look, Tony. He came back to his senses, gasping for breath, and the load of the armor's oxygen supply system soared from 5% to 8%. After a while, Tony asked with difficulty, what is that? Shenyan did not speak. Now, he could not give an answer. He just stared at the sky seriously, and a blue light had already burned in his eyes. His fingers moved slightly, and a ray of light flashed, enveloping him and Tony. Tony was still breathing heavily, and the mental shock he suffered would not be able to recover for a while. If he had to explain what happened to him, it was more than just losing San. Shenyan turned his head, and the serious look in his eyes made Tony's heart jump. What's wrong? Is there something wrong with this? He was joking as usual, but Shenyan did not respond with a joke. I'm afraid I have to let you go back first, Tony. The exploration plan is cancelled. Listen, find Strange immediately after you go back. Let him perform a full set of Chimera's rituals on you. You cannot contact any ordinary people before the ritual is completed. Understand? Wait. What is the Chimera's ritual? The doctor must at least tell the patient what disease he has before the operation? Tony raised his hand and gestured, indicating that he should wait. Shenyan shook his head. It's the Chimera's ritual, Tony. It has a long history and is specifically used to remove potential, diffusible pollution that may exist in the human spiritual realm. You can understand that you are now suffering from a mental parasite. It won't kill you, but it will gradually devour your memory over time. You won't go crazy, nor will you become a fool, but your memory will disappear little by little, like Pepper, like your daughter. He raised his head again and stared at the rolling dark clouds, squinting his eyes. My judgment was wrong, Tony. Sorry, it's my problem. That thing not only feeds on resentment, but its diet is also full of memories. So that thing is a super large mental parasite? It feeds on human memories? I'm afraid it's not that casual, Tony. Shenyan snapped his fingers, and a dimensional portal appeared under Tony's feet. gradually swallowing him up. The latter did not resist. At the last second before leaving, he heard Shenyan say, "Nothing will happen to ordinary people when they see it, but you have a high potential in this area." What? When he asked this question, he had already returned to the Sanctum Sanctorum. Tony raised his visor, frowned and thought carefully. He said, "I have a high potential in this area? What does that mean? Why are you back? Did you find the nuclear bomb?" With a flash of light, Strange, wearing a cloak, appeared in front of Tony. He held a cup of coffee in his hand, looking quite leisurely, and even wearing a pair of plush slippers on his feet. Tony had to admit one thing. He got angry when he saw Strange like this, especially after he caught a glimpse of his beard. He said unhappily, "Found it. The one behind it is a miserable race from another dimension that wants to invade the Earth. To be honest, they are really miserable. I just came back from that dimension, and he threw me back. He said he wanted you to perform a full set of chimeral rituals on me." What did you say? What's wrong? Strange stopped talking nonsense, raised his hands, and the coffee cup floated in the air. The magic circle rose from under Tony's feet and wrapped him in it. He clenched his fists, put his arms against each other, and then pulled them out suddenly, accompanied by a slight cracking sound. Tony felt a chill in his brain. The weirdest thing was that he didn't feel any pain. WTF? Strange. What did you do to me? Don't talk. Damn it. Stand there and don't move. In just a few seconds, Strange's forehead was covered with fine beads of sweat. He closed his eyes, loosened his right fist, and raised it upwards. The mental tentacles instantly pulled Tony so loud, he was still screaming, and it took him a long time to realize that he was not dead. What the hell? Again? Strange, I told you last time that you can't let me experience this feeling. Hey, what are you doing? Strange walked through his soul that was trying to stop him and walked forward angrily. I'm saving your life. Tony, stop talking. Let me have some energy to perform the chimeral rituals. You are a lucky guy. Tony's soul followed behind. He looked at Strange curiously, and then looked at his body standing there with his eyes closed but still breathing. After a while, he asked, "So how does this ritual go?" Strange sighed. Golden light floated down from the ceiling, and the spirit of the sanctuary appeared before them again. This time, she used English. She said to Tony, "The first step is to separate your soul from your body. In the second step, the Sorcerer Supreme will build an illusion for you to enter your spiritual realm. The third step, and the most important step, is to kill the diffusible pollution in your brain. Tell me, Iron Man, how did you get infected with this stuff? Do you know me?" "I don't know me. I just connected to the Wi-Fi here and checked the information during my sleep. I have to say that human technology is very interesting." Tony looked at Strange, then at the sanctuary, and then stared at the spirit of the sanctuary and asked, "You know you're a magical creature, right? How can you connect to Wi-Fi?" "Your description is strictly wrong, Tony Stark. I am not a magical creature. I am a consciousness born naturally in the sanctuary." The spirit of the sanctuary explained to him gently and patiently, "I can affect the space around the sanctuary, and naturally I can capture the complex signals that you release in the air. It's too easy to connect to the internet." Tony's soul raised his hand, rubbed his temple, trying to calm down. He took a deep breath, pointed at Strange and said, Okay, ma'am, let's not talk about why you can connect to Wi-Fi. How is he going to kill the mental pollution in my brain? Throw a fireball in there? No, he won't do that. But you will sleep for a while, Tony Stark." With a smile, the spirit of the sanctuary raised her right hand, and Tony's soul fell asleep instantly. She turned her head and looked at Strange. "Sorcerer Supreme, what else do you need me to do?" "Help me contact my senior brother. Ask him if he needs help." Strange closed his eyes and said, "He can't always carry things on his shoulders alone." Chapter 592. What can a race do to survive? If Shenyan knew Strange's thoughts, he would be a little touched, and then immediately told him not to come and cause trouble. He stared deeply at the strange dark cloud and looked down at the ground. All he could see were collapsed cities and ruins. The architectural style of the Star Children was indeed qualified to mock humans. From the remaining traces of civilization, Shenyan could see the effort this race put into art. It was a pity that it was useless, and after the destruction of civilization, The more beautiful it was, the more unpleasant this ruin was. Shenyan closed his eyes, and his mental tentacles carefully avoided the dark clouds above his head, drilled into the ground, and began to search for traces of the Star Children. The dark cloud was still tirelessly absorbing the resentment from the Star Children, and turned a blind eye to Shenyan's appearance. In fact, if Tony didn't keep staring at it, he would be fine now. Finally, he found them 3,000 meters underground. Your Excellency, it has been confirmed that General K. Ortibolius is completely dead. His mental fluctuations can no longer be observed by the stargazers. In the dark hall, a monster covered in black knelt on one knee and reported to the darkness in front of it. After a while, a low murmur came out of the darkness. Where are the others? All dead too. Get ready. Send the second advance team over. If we can't gain some advantage for our transfer, at least let them hide there and gain a foothold. What's today's daily report? 3,312 people died today, my lord. What about the breeding farm? The staff in the breeding farm are working overtime to urge them, and it is expected that a new batch of slaves will be available next year. Not enough. It takes 3 years for the slaves to mature. We don't have much time. According to the calculations of the stargazers, the speed of absorption by the dark cloud is getting faster and faster. Put another batch of seeds into the breeding farm. Let them produce more slaves. No matter whether they are dead or alive, take half of the people who died today and put them into the transformation system to supply the breeding farm so that they can eat more. Yes, my lord. The Star Child in charge of the report stood up silently and left the dark hall. A barely perceptible sigh came from the darkness. Invisible Shenyan appeared here. In the darkness of the hall, a Star Child who had almost lost the shape of their race was crawling on the ground. Complex instruments were connected to its exposed brain, and its body seemed to be trembling slightly because of pain. The wizard looked at it meaningfully and shook his head. A race can really do anything to survive. Breeding farm. Just by listening to the name, you can guess what this place is for. But what is raised inside is not livestock, but a group of Star Children whose brains have been sucked out and whose reproductive ability has been enhanced through genetic technology. They can provide 10,000 slaves every year, and it takes about 3 years for a slave to mature. The remaining first-generation Star Children and their descendants have learned their lesson, and even the slaves have been brainwashed. Only 3,000 of them did not, but these 3,000 only have 3 years of life. Once they mature, they will be killed in a cruel way, transported to the ground through pipelines, and supplied to the dark clouds to absorb their resentment and negative emotions. This is how the Star Children survive. But what do they eat? The answer is simple. It's still slave labor. Among the 10,000 slaves, 3,000 are supplied to the dark cloud, 3,000 are given to the stargazers for magic testing, and the remaining 4,000 are all food. This cycle will be broken every 10 years, because the Star Children in the breeding farm will be replaced every 10 years. The 4,000 slaves who should have been food will turn into unconscious breeders. Such survival is really outrageous. You know, all the Star Children are actually descendants of the first generation of Star Children. From the memory, this race obviously has normal moral concepts, but they can still do such things. Shenyan raised his hand and lifted the invisibility. The first generation of Star Children crawling in the darkness in the hall is still unconscious. It is too old, and the dark skin on its body even looks a little faded. The prismatic brain is exposed, and the pipes are transporting red liquid inside. Those things were ground-up corpses of Star Children, transformed through a special system into some kind of powerful hallucinogens. Yes, this first-generation Star Child was taking drugs. In order to better absorb the hallucinogens, it even removed its own skull and took the most direct brain injection. The material of the hallucinogens was made from the corpses of its children. The mage looked at this thing. There were still 73 first-generation Star Children like it. After the war, their number dropped sharply. There were originally 200, but in the endless darkness of 1500 years, many people committed suicide. He stepped forward and picked up the first-generation Star Child with his mental tentacles. It was still in a hallucination and had no idea of its upcoming fate. Shenyan made a gesture, and the hall suddenly lit up. In order to save energy, This hall that had been bright for thousands of years was bright again. Shenyan shook his head, not knowing whether to sigh or nausea. In order to save energy, it didn't even want to turn on the lights. But it hid in the dark and lay on the ground to explore hallucinations with its own child's corpse. The mental tentacles pulled out the tube, and the red liquid spilled all over the floor. He shook the first-generation Starchild casually. Its head shook around, and its prismatic brain was still exposed. At this moment, it was beating rhythmically. The mage stared at it, and the illusory flame flashed and disappeared. It immediately groaned slightly. The beautiful illusion created by the hallucinogen was gradually transformed into a horrible nightmare, and its body began to tremble violently. Shenyan didn't care about his life or death, opened the portal, and came to the surface. The dark clouds were still rolling overhead. Shenyan patiently aggravated the degree of the nightmare little by little. He wanted to let this first-generation Starchild suffer and die, but don't get me wrong, it was not to kill it to vent his anger, or to avenge the Star Children who were persecuted by it. He just wanted to witness the eating process of the dark clouds with his own eyes. A few minutes later, the first-generation Starchild, who had spent hundreds of years in the illusion, let out a short whine. The prismatic brain gradually faded. Shenyan released his spiritual tentacles, and its dark body immediately fell down. But just before it hit the ground, it was slowly pulled up by the dark clouds. It floated slowly, rising into the sky little by little. The prismatic brain gradually left the body and flew towards the rolling dark clouds. The body fell to the ground, and there was no sound. The mage stared at the direction where the brain disappeared, and nodded thoughtfully. His research addiction came back. Chapter 593 Ending Episode. What exactly is this dark cloud? Shenyan thought. An evil god? No, not at all. He has no divinity in him, nor does he crave destruction. His need for memories full of resentment and pain is more like an instinct, just like a thirsty person needs water. However, even though he absorbed so many negative emotions, Shenyan did not sense any madness from him. On the contrary, after he absorbed the brain and memory of the first generation of the Star Child, Shenyan actually caught a trace of pity from the emotions in the air. This dark cloud is pitying them. He blocked the entire planet, making it impossible for the Star Children to leave. Although the destruction of the planet's environment is indeed their own fault. Pity? Shenyan raised his hand, and the tentacles of his mental power extended from the ground to the sky, gently touching the dark cloud. The heavy dark cloud that swept the entire sky immediately responded accordingly, but it was not an attack. A cloud separated from the huge cloud covering the sky and landed directly in front of the mage. The creature stared at him for a long time before gradually changing its form. From a cloud, it changed into a human form. Its face was almost the same as Shenyan's, with only some minor differences, and it was adjusting. You know, in our culture, this is usually considered a provocation. Shenyan raised his eyebrows. So you have intelligence? I don't understand what provocation means, but it doesn't seem to be a good word. Yonduo tilted his head and thought for a while, with a very confused expression. Shenyan had to admit that it was really weird to look at his face and make such an expression. Fortunately, this weird scene did not last too long, and Yonduo quickly changed its form. It still retained its human body, but its face simply disappeared. A faceless man stood opposite him. Does this make you feel better, alien? Do you know that I come from another dimension? I have always known these things, but just absorbing the pain that exists in my dimension has left me no time to care, Yonduo said. So, if you want me to go to your world and absorb the pain there, I'm afraid I can't do anything. I don't think my world needs your help, but thank you anyway. Shenyan raised a hand calmly, and the body of the first-generation Star Child that fell to the ground not far away flew over. Yonduo looked at the body of the first-generation Star Child with his faceless face, and his mental tentacles once again captured the emotion of pity. Are you pitying them? Shenyan asked. Yes, Yonduo admitted readily. They have been wandering among the stars for so long, I thought they would have a good ending. Unfortunately, after they found their home, they made themselves even more miserable. Even I, who am drifting several galaxies away, can feel it. You can feel the pain of other creatures. Not just creatures. Yonduo took a step forward, stretched out his arms, gently embraced the body of the first-generation star children, and whispered, "I can feel the pain of many things, nature, the world, and even you, a visitor from another world. Your pain is huge." "I don't think it's very painful." The wizard flatly denied his words, and Yonduo didn't seem to want to ask any more questions. He just sighed and gently placed the body of the first-generation star children on the ground. They should have had a better ending, but they destroyed themselves. It is indeed their problem that the environment of this planet has become bad, but it is also because you blocked the sky, isn't it? "No, it's not me who blocked the sky," Yonduo corrected. "It's the dead star children who borrowed my power." "So, what are you?" Yonduo was silent for a while. "I'm afraid I'm also looking for the answer to your question, visitor from another world." "I can't answer you. You said that the dead star children blocked the sky?" "Yes. Not only that, they also want to completely destroy their own race." Yonduo nodded gently. "I don't understand, but I won't stop them from borrowing my power to realize their wishes." "Borrowing power to realize wishes is an interesting description." Shenyan asked the last question. "Since you have been here, you must know that they sent troops to invade my world, right?" "I know." "Then, if I want to kill them, will you stop me?" "It's them." Yonduo corrected his words. "I won't stop you. They are destined to end, sooner or later. It's the same. Maybe their lives have no meaning, just like those slaves who died in their breeding grounds." He raised his head and stared at the thick clouds in the sky, rolling endlessly. At first glance it looks like a dark ocean surging above the sky. His shape was changing every moment, and so were his emotions. Shenyan caught his emotions again. From pity, it became a more complex emotion. It's been 1,500 years. In the past, there has never been any planet that allowed me to stay for so long. The suffering of the star children is so great that I even feel that I am about to be torn apart by their memories. Sometimes, in dreams, I am not myself. I am a working star child at the bottom." He was silent for a long time, raised his head and asked the wizard a question. "If their memories are all in me, then what am I?" "I can't answer your question, but I have a story that you may be willing to listen to," Shenyan said. According to ancient books, there is a wanderer wandering among the stars. He has no home, no family, no compatriots, no companions. He has nothing. Anyone who tries to talk to him will die, but not by his own hands. He is unwilling to get close to anyone, just wandering among the stars with nothing. 10,000 years have passed, and he has never talked to anyone in 10,000 years, until a wizard named Ancient One found him. They met on the surface of the sun. This was the first time he met someone who could talk to him. Ancient One asked him, "Where is your planet?" "It was destroyed." "Where are your family?" "Dead." "All dead?" "Yes," the wanderer answered in confusion. "I don't know who I am." "You are the only one who can communicate with me in 10,000 years. Before, I just wandered from one planet to another. I can fly in the universe and I can crush stars. But I don't want to hurt anyone, and I don't understand why those who talk to me die. If you are here to avenge them, please do it." "I won't resist." The wanderer closed his eyes with a little relief, but Ancient One did not kill him. She just smiled. From her perspective, the wanderer was not a person, but a huge memory aggregated. There are a total of 13.2 billion memories in him. He is the last legacy of a civilization and their gravekeeper. The memories of 13.2 billion people are stored in his mind. He doesn't know his name, but he knows that his planet has been destroyed and that his family is dead, but he can't say any of their names at all. He only remembered their faces, one after another, men, women, old and young, beautiful or ugly. Whenever he closed his eyes, these faces flew before his eyes. Ancient One said, "No, I will not kill you, but you will keep wandering. You are their tombstone." Do you know the wanderer? Yonduo asked with a little expectation. "No, I don't know him. In fact, no one has seen him in person, and no one knows whether this story is true or false." Shenyan's words made Yonduo lower his head in disappointment. He didn't say more, and his figure gradually floated up, as if he was going back to the thick clouds. The wizard stood on the ground, watching him gradually go away, and said nothing. He quietly dispelled the prepared flesh and blood curse. Yonduo did not lie. He could see it. Indeed, these star children are destined to die, and none of them will survive. In fact, they will not even have the opportunity to send another advance team to the Earth. Shenyan will seal this place until all the star children are completely dead. This was just a small episode in his long journey. The most urgent task now was to return to the Sanctum Sanctorum to find out why the connection between dimensions had become so weak. I got off work a little late today, and there were still 2 chapters to go. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 594, Poor Taste. Tony felt that he had a good sleep. He didn't know how many middle-aged people in the world would be like this, but at least he would. Every time he woke up from sleep, the joints all over his body would protest. Every movement would make a popping sound, which was quite a headache. Even a rich man like him could not avoid this old problem, at least not before he had the urge to transform himself into a robot one day. He sat up from the sofa in the Sanctum Sanctorum, touched his smooth head, and turned his head to look at Strange beside him. The horse-faced wizard was holding a glass of chocolate milk and drinking it non-stop. His face was a little pale and he was wrapped in a thick blanket. "What's wrong with you? Don't talk to me for the time being." "Hush." Strange was concentrating on the TV not far away, which was playing an old youth campus drama. Tony had watched it, a total of 7 seasons, and the protagonists played from young to old. The plot of the entire 7 seasons can be roughly summarized as follows. A fell in love with B. B didn't like A but liked C, but C liked A. The story of the 3 people developed for a long time, and finally A finally came to his senses and chose to go to college with C. As a result, at this time, C was hit by B's car, a classic love-hate drama. This part of the plot took 2 seasons, and the screenwriter introduced D, E, F and G in the 3rd season. C survived, and then these 7 people started to mess with each other, doing all kinds of operations that destroyed the world view. Oh, by the way, are all women. Tony stared at the 4 women on TV running wildly on the street in tight long skirts in stormy weather, and then the 4 people piled up and started to do that in the street. He couldn't help but start to twitch his face. "Strange, what's so good about this?" "You don't understand," Strange said excitedly. "Oh my god, I've been following them for 4 seasons. And they are finally going to get married. But wouldn't it be bad to do it on the street? I mean, why don't they book a hotel or something? It's too weird that the other 4 like each other, but they are all pretty." "You are the kind of man who searches for lesbian videos on the internet, right?" Tony said weakly again. "Strange, can you tell me how the hell the ritual went? Besides, you are a wizard. The ritual went well. Otherwise I wouldn't have been drinking chocolate milk. It can heal a small part of mental damage. Didn't you notice that I'm particularly pale?" Strange put down the cup and looked at Tony with dissatisfaction. "Also, what's wrong with wizards? Can't wizards watch TV series?" Tony turned his head and looked at the TV. The 4 women were kissing each other on the rainy street. Their makeup was smudged, and their acting skills could be described as eye-catching. However, he suddenly found that the 4 leading actors all had good figures, very good figures. The tight skirts soaked by the rain wrapped them tightly. Now, he began to understand why more than 60 viewers of this TV were men. Ahem. Tony coughed and put on a gentlemanly look. He said that there was some kind of mental pollution in my brain that might be contagious. "What is that? A parasite?" He also said that it would devour my memory. "Did I lose my memory?" "There's nothing wrong with your memory. In fact, that thing didn't touch your memory. It just cleared some of the past pain in your brain, such as what happened on your single night. Looking back now, isn't it less embarrassing?" Tony stood up with a twitch in the corner of his eye. He found that it was exactly as Strange said. Now thinking back to what happened on the single night, he really didn't feel so embarrassed or want to go back to the past and strangle himself to death. "So, this parasite is good?" "It's not a parasite," Strange shrugged. "I prefer to call it the small tentacle of a huge existence." "In fact, Tony, If your mind is not so sensitive and you don't have so much pain in your heart, it may not extend its tentacles into your brain at all. You are really good at chatting. Same hero. He is back. Strange also stood up, and a portal opened above their heads, and Shenyan floated out with his hands behind his back. With a blank expression, the first thing he did was to glance at the TV, and then he reacted exactly the same as Tony. At this moment, the picture on the TV just happened to show that they quarreled again for some reason and tore each other's clothes. Don't tell me you are following this kind of drama, Strange. Shenyan asked slightly gloomily. Are you the kind of man who searches for lesbian videos on the internet? The horse-faced wizard raised his hand and threw the TV into the North Pole. That's what happened. We don't need to worry about the alien visitors anymore. The remaining American politicians are all dead. As for the creature, I want to name it Cloud. Shenyan held a heavy book in his hand and placed it on the bookshelf of the Sanctum Sanctorum. It contained an introduction to the Star Children and this little story. There was no enlightenment or anything like that. He simply wrote it down and planned to leave it for future mages to read. Then, now, Shenyan turned around and glanced at Strange, who was standing not far away. He said slowly, we can start discussing why the connection between dimensions has become closer. Tony left early. He flew away immediately after knowing that he was fine. Pepper called him 12 times while he was performing the ritual, the most recent one being 2 hours ago. Shenyan estimated that he would have to sleep on the sofa tonight. Strange made a gesture, and the scene in the Sanctum Sanctorum began to change, from the original antique style to a completely pure white space. He could have done something similar, but it was not as easy as it was now. After the spirit of the sanctuary of the Holy of Holies woke up, it also recognized his identity as the Supreme Sorcerer. This ancient building was truly at his disposal at this time. It can do many things, such as creating a space that cannot be eavesdropped by anyone in the world. Although Shenyan thought this was unnecessary, the connection between dimensions became close 2 years ago. Shortly before I decided to recruit students again. At that time, I had just dealt with a conflict between African voodoo and wandering gypsies. A war broke out between the two sides in Africa. The scale was not large, but it was very tragic. Strange raised his hand with a serious expression, and some scenes began to be extracted from his memory and emerged around him. There is one more chapter. Chapter 595, Old Acquaintance. In the picture, a group of black people in white robes were excitedly surrounding a group of gypsies in the center. They were numerous, while the gypsies were much fewer. They brought their families with them, and the women and children were hiding in the carriage, only daring to carefully stick their heads out to peek out. The specific reason is probably that one of the gypsies was dishonest. They originally came here to attend a spellcaster gathering held by the voodoo cult. After the gathering, the voodoo people found that one of their antiques had disappeared. Strange said calmly, the antique is nothing special, it's just the skull left by Lilder, the most respected shaman in the current voodoo cult. Let me guess. Shenyan laughed. Were these gypsies killed by the voodoo cult? Not much, but you have to do it the other way around. Strange also laughed, but it was a bitter smile. Somehow, the group of gypsies turned around and killed all the voodoo cultists who surrounded them. It happened so suddenly that, to be honest, even we didn't react. Although the voodoo cult was a gathering of wizards, they have been abiding by the law and have not cast spells in front of people or provided magic services to ordinary people for more than 30 years. Many people didn't even have the materials to cast spells, such as their favorite voodoo dolls. In short, they all died, without exception. Strange made a gesture, and the picture began to change. A burly guy with short black hair walked out of the group of gypsies who were surrounded. His appearance is very distinctive, and it is basically difficult to forget it once you have seen it. It is difficult to forget his ugly appearance. If he was just ugly, it would be excusable, but his face was full of scars. This guy stood in front of the gypsies, holding a skull in his hand and holding it high. Seeing this, the blacks became even more angry. I guess this skull belongs to Rildu. Yeah, look what he did next. The guy grinned and crushed Rildu's skull. Powder and fragments fell from his fingers. Then, dark green flames suddenly broke out, as if they had self-awareness. burning all the voodoo people to ashes from where the fragments fell. The gypsies left quickly. It's as if they disappeared from this world, and no trace can be found anymore. Strange shook his head. As for the way he casts spells, I guess you can tell without me saying it, right? Shenyan could tell. Of course, the gypsies are a wandering people. They never stay in one place for too long. They travel around the world. This has been the case since the 10th century, and their footprints are all over the world. There are indeed spellcasters among them, but they are only proficient in some simple divination spells to make money. There are also some rune spells for self-defense. They would use witch drums for divination, knots for divination, or use stones and animal bones to make runes to protect themselves from harm. But it is absolutely impossible to do what that ridiculously ugly guy did. In the picture, he used pure voodoo magic, and even the method of casting the spell was exactly the same, standard enough to be called textbook level. Well, this is very interesting, Strange, the wizard said softly, but let's put his matter aside for now. Have you explained it to the voodoo people? I did, but they didn't accept it. There were more than one gypsies who came to the party. When the voodoo found out about what happened here, they chose to repay blood with blood. Strange pursed his lips. The war lasted for a day and a half, and I arrived to mediate between them. This matter is over. They had a good relationship before, but now, he smiled bitterly and shrugged. Is it from this time that the connection between dimensions became close? Shenyan asked. Yes, since the gypsy disappeared, the connection between dimensions has become closer. This year alone, I have dealt with 17 dimensional crossing incidents. Now there is a visitor from another world staying in Kamartaj, eagerly waiting for me to find a solution. Oh? Shenyan became interested. Take me to see him. It's her. Strange corrected. By the way, this lady is very powerful. The wizard raised his eyebrows in non-committal. Miss Kara, can you let go of our Wi-Fi? Wang Zheng, a senior wizard of Kamartaj, who is burly but not bloated, in fact, he has gained some weight in recent years, complained to a blonde girl in front of him with a bitter face. I understand that the world you come from doesn't have as many video games as ours, but the Wi-Fi in Kamartaj is only 100 megabytes. You have to download several new games every day, so other people's experience is very problematic. Huh? The girl called Kara was a little dumbfounded. She blinked. But, you are mages, and the Wi-Fi is only 100 megabytes. Wang sighed deeply. You don't know, Ms. Kara, the supreme sorcerer of this term is a stingy miser. He doesn't provide us with funding, and he exploits me and makes me work overtime all year round. Huh? Kara was shocked. Is he so bad? Didn't you sue him for exploiting his employees? Wang's brows frowned even more tightly, and his face shrank into a ball. Well, he is my boss. Who can I complain to? How abominable. Kara jumped off the sofa, threw down the game controller in her hand, and waved her arms indignantly. How could he do this? Tell me who he is, and I will help you beat him up a couple of times to vent your anger. You don't have to hit me, Ms. Kara. Strange popped his head out of the portal that had just opened, and stared at Wang speechlessly. This guy is just teasing you. He has no good intentions. Really? Kara looked at them suspiciously until a man walked out of the portal, and her eyes widened. You're that guy. Shenyan frowned. Do you know me? Yes, you're the wizard who saved our world. I saw your photo at Batman's place. Kara ran over from the sofa in high spirits, took his right hand and began to shake it up and down. You're not dead. We all thought you were dead. Batman even built a statue for you. Wait. Shenyan pulled out his right hand without leaving a trace. You're not from that world, are you? Done. I wrote 240,000 words this month, and I'll try to reach 280,000 next month. Chapter 596. A statue was erected while he was still alive. What? There are other worlds? I thought it was outrageous that I woke up and jumped into your place. Is there something even more bizarre? Kara asked excitedly, and the wizard sighed. He was almost writing the word numb on her face. First, I have to confirm a few things. He raised a finger. You said Batman built a statue for me? Yes. He put the statue in the Justice League Hall. Kara looked very happy, with a bright smile. Oh, by the way, I haven't introduced myself yet. Hello, my name is Kara, Kara Kent. Ah, I finally see someone I know. Although you have superheroes here, it is much more peaceful than our world. Shenyan calmly retracted his raised finger, and then silently took a step back, keeping a certain degree of polite distance from Kara. This alien visitor was obviously a little too happy. She was almost hanging on the wizard. "Why are you backing off?" she asked in confusion. "Did I scare you?" "A little, Ms. Kara, but more because my brain is a bit confused right now. Listen, I want to ask you a few questions. So, can you answer me quietly, and not so enthusiastically?" "Isn't this polite?" Kara asked doubtfully. "Clark told me to be polite to others, and although I slept for a long time, I agree with him. Is politeness really a necessity, or is it different here?" Strange interrupted. "No, it's just that my senior brother is simply misogynistic. He hardly communicates deeply with any woman." "Ah." Shenyan turned his head and looked at him with a threatening look, and at the same time retracted the mental tentacles that had just whipped him on the back of the head. "Is that so? Then you must have been hurt by some bad woman when you were a child." Kara believed Strange's words almost immediately. She looked at the wizard with sympathy. "Oh my God. I apologize for my behavior just now." "Sorry, I will stand here and talk to you, if you still feel uncomfortable." "No, number. There is no need, Ms. Kara." Strange was just joking. "He is very bad at this, so I hope you don't believe anything he says." Shenyan looked back at Wang, who was trying to hold back his laughter. The fat man was having a hard time holding back his laughter, and even his face was twitching. The wizard circled his neck with his thumb, and Wang's face immediately changed. He very tactfully pulled Strange away. "Why did they leave?" "Oh, that's it," Shenyan said calmly. "They both had stomach upset. But I didn't see them eating." "Don't worry about these details, Miss Kara. I haven't introduced myself yet. My name is Shenyan, and I'm a wizard. By the way, I'm very interested in the statue Batman built for me." Kara told a short but wonderful story. At that time, she woke up from a deep sleep. Batman was kneeling beside her, his helmet thrown aside, with an anxious expression. That was the first time she saw Batman with such an expression. He was constantly pressing the button on his armor, as if he wanted to call the Justice League. A monotonous dripping sound kept coming out of his armor. Her mouth opened slightly and uttered an unclear syllable. Kara didn't know what happened to her, she only knew that she was very sleepy at the time. The sound she made was also pitifully small, but fortunately Batman noticed it immediately. He stared at Kara and didn't even dare to speak for a long time. "Are you still alive?" he asked tremblingly. "Are you still alive, Kara? Please, say something." Before Kara could answer, Batman began to press the armor again. He panted and said to the armor, "New York Subway Platform 4, Batman requests support, highest danger level. I have a wounded person here. Repeat, I have a wounded person here." Kara wanted to tell him that she was fine, just temporarily unable to move. However, she was too tired and very sleepy. Somehow, she felt the warmth of home while lying in the cold and dirty corridor of the subway station. The most important thing was that she felt that her mother was watching her. She wanted to fall asleep because she heard her mother humming a lullaby. Isn't it natural for a child to feel sleepy when hearing a lullaby? What's more, the sound was so beautiful and gentle. It seemed that as long as she fell asleep with such a sound, there would be no more pain in the world. She didn't have to keep struggling between her identity and the identity of an Earthling. Nor did she have to think about the destroyed Krypton and the parents who sent her away every night. But Batman's voice made her stay away from the lullaby. He said in a voice full of pain, "Wake up, Kara. Don't listen to the song. Don't listen." Kara tried to open her eyes and found that Batman was crying. No, it was Bruce Wayne who was crying. He gritted his teeth and knelt on the ground, but his back was straight. Kara knew that he could hear the lullaby too. But Bruce Wayne's face was full of sleepiness. But in addition to these, there was also deep anger. "Don't let her affect you," he said in a hoarse voice. "There is a man underground here, a man you have never seen. He is fighting bloody battles for the future of our world. He does not belong here, and he does not have to fight her for us. Kara, if you can hear me, if you are still awake, help me. I need your help." Bruce Wayne lowered his head, and at this time, Kara saw two illusory figures through his shoulders. A man and a woman. They stood behind Bruce Wayne, looking at him with love. "No," Bruce whispered. "No, I can't sleep. I have to help him. I can't let him fight alone. This won't do." He seemed to finally give up and fell backwards, but at the moment he was about to fall, they grabbed him. A man and a woman, a pair of parents. They grabbed their child, just like every parent would do. The man picked him up and the woman stroked his cheek. Kara stared at the scene in front of her, not knowing how to react. Then, the woman spoke. "Hello, child." Her voice was gentle, but with an unconcealable sadness. "You can see us, right?" "Yes, I can see it, but I can't answer you." Kara could only blink as hard as she could. The woman gave a sad smile. "The mother of creation is here, child. She is right under our feet, in the deepest part of the city, in the wild underground far away from human civilization. There, a visitor from another world is resisting her." My Bruce can't move. The mother of creation gave him an order. He can't leave here. He should have fallen into a deep sleep. But Bruce, he refused. "I hope you can help us." The man spoke. His voice was steady, and he was 9 points similar to Batman. "He fell into a deep sleep and saw us in his dream. He thought it was an illusion, just like the illusions he saw in the past when he was affected by chemicals and toxins by those enemies. But we are real. I wish he could stay with us in the illusion for a while longer." There, he is not Batman. He has his own life. He can choose to change the world or do nothing, but he refused. "Maybe I should have understood that. I should have understood from the moment I died that my child is destined to become Batman." The man held his son in his arms and closed his eyes. "The mother of creation has arranged the fate for everyone. This is true for me, my wife, and my child. He is destined to suffer, to witness our deaths, to become broken, and then to become a paranoid psychopath. It shouldn't be like this." Bruce Wayne's parents looked at him, and Kara felt a strong warmth rising from where she lay. In the dark, she heard the sound of something breaking, like a mirror, or a barrier. "The barrier of the world is broken, child," the woman said. "It doesn't want us to die. It summoned a goddess at the cost of its own brokenness. But it will take time for her to come, child. I need you to do us a favor." The man reluctantly put Bruce Wayne down and stood with the woman. Ghosts, ghosts. Parents who had died for many years. Their bodies began to gradually dissipate, and at the same time, the weariness that had always troubled Kara began to gradually dissipate. The power is back again, and the power of the Kryptonians flows through her body again. She stood up and asked panikedly to the air, "What should I do?" "Protect him." Their combined voices were so soft that they were almost inaudible. "Please, Kara Zor-El." The voices disappeared completely. Then, she heard thousands of roars, coming from underground, from under her feet. Ugly, black monsters with spindly limbs broke free from the soil and bricks with palpitating malice, like some kind of resentful spirit. Karen understood. She clenched her fists and stood in front of the unconscious Batman. I fought them for a long time, and that was the first time I realized how strong I was. Kara smiled embarrassedly. "I don't want you to think I'm bragging, but it's true. I didn't let any of them hurt him." Shenyan nodded thoughtfully, leaning back in the armchair, and Kara sat back on the sofa. The TV was playing the standby interface of the game, and exciting music came from the speakers next to it. Shenyan was thinking, tapping his fingers on the armrest. Some things were gradually becoming clear. The Justice League did not respond to Batman's call, most likely because Pepperchill was playing her lullaby to the whole world, and they had probably fallen asleep a long time ago. The Mother of Creation had woven a beautiful fantasy for each of them, where they could live a wonderful life. This was probably the last tenderness of the Goddess of Creation to her failed creations. They would be killed in their sleep without pain or perception by the things she sent out. When they woke up again, the world would probably have been reshaped by her. It was a pity that she didn't expect that the world barrier of this world would rather break than let her succeed easily. She miscalculated. Sunny finally stopped her. "What happened next, Ms. Kara?" "What happened next? I only remember that I fought them for a long time, and then I saw a blue light and an explosion. It seemed to come from underground." Kara tried to recall. "Also, I heard a woman shouting a name." "What was it?" "I can't remember it, but she seemed very angry. It matched. Shenyan laughed dumbly. He didn't need to listen to what happened next to guess. It was nothing more than that Sni directly pulled Perpetua out of that world, beat her up, and took this world away. By the way, it will be safe under the protection of the fairy in the lake. But no matter what, the fact that Batman erected a statue for him was somewhat beyond his expectations. So, Ms. Kara, just call me Kara, you are the hero who saved all of us. Batman said that if it weren't for your help, we would have all died long ago. He insisted that Martian Manhunter enter his memory to extract your face and the whole story. He is very stubborn about this. Martian Manhunter told me privately that Batman felt very guilty about your death. Okay, Kara. Shenyan nodded. So, what does my statue look like? The girl smiled and tilted her head. Well, the statue looks similar to you, but not as handsome as you. Wearing a long black cape. Hey, have you ever worn a cape? No. Then why did he add a cape to you? Maybe because it would be more mysterious. Shenyan pulled the corner of his mouth and showed a strange smile. It was the first time he was sculpted. So, Kara. Shenyan made a gesture. Why did you come here again? Kara let out a frustrated sigh. Okay. You can't laugh at me when I tell you. I'll try my best, promise. I promise. The girl took a deep breath. I overslept playing games and was going to be late for class, so I planned to fly over, but my flying skills are not up to par, and I seemed to have crashed into something when I flew over. It hurt a lot, and when I woke up, I was here. If Wang hadn't found me, I'm afraid I'd still be confused in the Sahara Desert. When I first came to your place, I lost my ability. Oh, wait, isn't this called acclimatization? Kara, who was a little disappointed just now, immediately became happy again. Hey, the words I learned in class are really useful. It turns out that I'm suffering from acclimatization. Acclimatization? Shenyan looked at her and smiled. I'm afraid it's not that simple, Kara. Are you hungry? And Chapter 597 Physical Examination. So you have a Burger King here too. Kara sat in a seat at the fast food restaurant, excitedly watching the people coming and going. On her right, a child was celebrating his birthday, and the family was celebrating for him, with laughter all around. She looked at this scene, and a smile spread across her face uncontrollably. Why isn't there one? Shenyan asked patiently. Because, Kara said embarrassedly, I haven't even seen the advertisement on TV. Wang likes fried rice very much. I've been here for more than 4 months, and he's been making fried rice for more than 4 months. It tasted good at first, but he's been making it all the time, and it's a bit. Forgive him. It's almost a joke here that Lao Wang can only make fried rice. Shenyan laughed dumbly, and at the same time reached out to take the 2 plates handed over by the waiter. There were 2 full meal sets on them. Kara whispered wow, looking at the food expectantly. I'm going to eat Burger King from another world. This is your portion, Kara. He reached out and put it on the table, but didn't start eating. Instead he turned his head and looked out the window. They sat at a table by the window. Park Avenue in New York is a classic office area. The architectural style here is not uniform because some buildings were built earlier. As early as the 1950s and 1960s, this place was used as an office area. Now, the old beautiful red brick buildings, some white houses that have been renovated and have a second life, and those high-rise buildings that reach the sky. 3 different styles of buildings are mixed together, which is strange. People come and go, and everyone has a smile on their faces. Only then did he pick up his Coke and take a sip. The familiar taste of Coca-Cola made him squint his eyes in satisfaction. As for Kara, she was eating heartily. Burger King is actually considered a poor man's food in the United States. Various stores often issue coupons to the community. Sometimes you can buy 3 burgers, a portion of fries and a Coke for only $3, which is terrible. Of course, at such a price, you can't expect to eat any good beef. At most, it can only be guaranteed to be beef. But now the situation has changed. Kara is eating a genuine fresh beef burger, which is juicy. Seeing her satisfied look, it is not difficult to guess what the burger tastes like. The reason is actually very simple. Tony Stark has acquired Burger King. His original words were, I have been unhappy with Burger King for a long time. Their best years were in the early 2000s, and they have become more and more unpalatable since then. As a loyal burger fan, I must stop them. He did stop them. This idle guy. Kara chewed her triple-decker burger and said incoherently, "Don't you want to eat?" I'm not very hungry. Then She stretched out her right hand carefully. The wizard smiled and nodded. "It's okay. It doesn't matter if you eat it all." "Thank you." Her happiness is so simple. 2 burgers can make her sigh with satisfaction. But Shenyan is not like that. He turned his head and looked at the family who was celebrating. He didn't feel relaxed. He rarely had time to relax. Most of the time, as a wizard of camouflage, you have to be vigilant. For example, now, he tilted his head slightly, raised his hand and pointed in a certain direction outside the window. A barely detectable blue light burst out from his finger, and then a bald man with a goatee fell down. Shenyan stood up and smiled at Kara. "I'm going out to meet an old friend. You eat slowly." He walked out of the store, and at this time, Tony had just stood up. He patted his clothes unhappily, and didn't understand why he fell down until he found Shenyan walking slowly towards him. Tony rolled his eyes. "Is it fun to make me fall down? Is it fun to secretly take pictures of me eating with a lady?" "You're not eating, but you are taking pictures secretly." "Hey, I just want to show it to everyone." "We are all curious about your love life," Tony said unhappily. "For so many years, you have avoided any woman, making us think that you don't like women. Until last time, Rod and I found you riding a roller coaster with a lady." He turned his head to look at Kara, who was like a hamster with puffy cheeks in the store, and laughed. "Tsk, she doesn't seem to be the one from last time. She and I are not in that kind of relationship." "I didn't notify you to come here for you to gossip about my love life, Tony." Shenyan rubbed his eyebrows. "Also, you'd better not let Jarvis send that photo to a group of people." "I don't care, but the lady in it can't be misunderstood inexplicably. I don't want her reputation to be damaged." "Don't slander me." Tony spread out his hand seemingly innocently. "Be careful or I'll sue you for defamation." "Then go ahead." Shenyan hugged him unhappily. "Are all the instruments for the physical examination ready?" "Yes, but I'm curious." Tony stroked his beard and asked thoughtfully, "Based on the strength of the instruments you asked me to prepare, the physical strength of this examinee whom I have never met is probably higher than when Dr. Banner was the most angry." "Did you bring Thor back? Isn't he still playing in the universe?" "No, not Thor. That's Banner." "No, that's not right. He should still be living on a small island in the Pacific Ocean. I bought that island for him." "Hey, who is it?" Shenyan pointed his thumb expressionlessly at Kara, who was sitting in the store behind him eating a hamburger. She looked harmless and powerless. "Are you kidding me?" "Do you think I'm kidding?" Tony opened his mouth wide and looked at Shenyan, as if to confirm whether he was crazy. He stopped only after the latter glared back at him with a cold look. Then, he pointed at Kara who was sitting inside and eating fries. "She is stronger than Hulk." "Who is Hulk?" WTF? Tony shuddered, and a sudden female voice sounded behind him. He turned his head and found that the girl who was sitting inside eating fries a second ago had appeared behind him without knowing when. She was drinking Coke with a straw, and her blue eyes were blinking. This? Tony looked back at Burger King, but there was no one by the window. He looked back at Kara again, then at the wizard, his face full of confusion. "What the hell?" "I'm not a ghost, sir. My name is Kara Kent." "Hello." The girl smiled and stretched out a hand still stained with oil, and shook hands with Tony who was still in shock. "I heard you say that I need a physical examination?" "Yes, Kara. Considering that you have traveled through a world, I think it is necessary for Tony to give you a physical examination to see your physical condition, although I can confirm from a magical point of view that there is nothing wrong with your soul. I am not a doctor. I have something urgent to do, so I owe one update, and I will pay it back tomorrow. This month has 30 days, and I guarantee to write a minimum of 280,000 words. I'm speeding up." Chapter 598, Destruction. Tony Stark looked down at the data projected by Jarvis. The outrageous and exaggerated numbers almost made him spill the gin in his hand on the floor. "Are you sure she is really human?" Tony couldn't help asking, his expression as if he saw a mammoth with a deformed head. Or maybe Captain Ape suddenly appeared in front of him. They were standing in a laboratory, covering a large area, These 4 words mean that this place is as big as Central Park. It was not originally so big, but Shenyan performed a magic trick to expand the space so that the subject of the physical examination could use all his strength. Kara was conducting many tests at the other end of the laboratory. On the ground in front of her were many instruments that were obviously used, such as an iron table that was broken into 2 pieces and some kind of punch tester that was still sizzling and smoking. I never said she was human. Shenyan stood beside Tony with his hands behind his back. When he heard his question, he answered calmly. At the same time, he smiled at Kara, who was looking over. So she is an alien? Tony took a sip of gin to calm down, but it didn't have the desired effect. He drank the wine in one gulp. The fragrant and tempting aroma seemed to still remain in the wall of the glass. The refreshing wine refreshed him. He exhaled slowly. I don't know whether I should be surprised or not. You brought a very beautiful alien lady here for me to give her a physical examination. I mean, what's there to examine? Tony pointed to the data and said, look at these data. I have no doubt that this lady can punch through a skyscraper with her bare hands, or lift my house and drop it on me. Conversely, based on her strength and speed, her ability to withstand blows is even better. Did you find a humanoid Hulk? It would be a bit rude to her to say that, and the Hulk wouldn't like you to compare him with others. Shenyan shrugged. Although Banner is basically in control of the body now, the Hulk still comes out sometimes. You don't want to be thrown around like Loki, do you? Tony scratched his cheek unnaturally, but still said stubbornly, I believe very much in the defensive capabilities and authenticity identification ability of my armor. There is absolutely no way he can throw me into that state. He was still talking, but Shenyan waved to Karen not far away. The Kryptonian girl jumped across half of Central Park and came to them. After completing those tests, there was not even a drop of sweat on her forehead. Tony looked at her strangely, and that look made Kara tilt her head in confusion. What's wrong, Mr. Stark? No, nothing. Iron Man spread his hands, then raised them high, turned and left like a Frenchman who abandoned his glorious tradition during World War II, holding the cup in his hands, and complained, You are simply wasting my time. After he walked away, Kara asked, why did Mr. Stark say you were wasting his time, Mr. Don't mind it, Shenyan said briefly, and then made a gesture. The huge space began to shrink slowly, and the extended floor was returning to its original appearance little by little, with creaking sounds, and even the incandescent lamps above their heads were returning to their original number little by little. Kara looked at this scene with curiosity, her eyes shining, and even took out her mobile phone to take a photo. The wizard laughed and slowed down so that she could take a video. Is this magic? She said excitedly. It's amazing. Amazing? It's amazing that you came here without any injuries. Shenyan sighed. Okay, Kara, thank you for cooperating with us to do a physical examination. There is nothing wrong with your body. You are very healthy. By the way, although I don't know how fast the Kryptonian's metabolism is, you should still gain weight. So, if you don't want to have a belly, you'd better eat less junk food and don't sit and play games all day. Ah, now you speak in the same tone as Clark. Kara pursed her lips. So, she asked cautiously, can I go back? It's not that I think your place is bad. It's great here. I've seen cars that can fly in the sky, and there are many more fun video games than when I was there. Even the PS has been released to 7, but I still want to go home. The blue eyes dimmed for a moment. After all, it's the only place I can call home now. Shenyan wanted to tell her immediately. Yes, I can send you back. You can go back and reunite with the people you know, the classmates you met in school, your cousin Clark Kent. You can live with them again. But he can't. He can't, because there is still one thing that is not clear. Kara Kent, Kara Zor-El, why did she come here? The wizard does not believe in coincidences. Even if she is a natural cross-border wizard who doesn't even know she is a cross-border wizard. Moreover, after getting up one day and getting excited because she was about to be laid, she accidentally opened her cross-border talent. More importantly, she was unconscious during this dangerous process. She was unconscious the whole time she crossed the endless sea of stars to reach the world of wizards, and was completely unconscious during the process. This is equivalent to an ordinary person falling into the Pacific Ocean, accidentally falling asleep, and landing safely after falling asleep. How could it be such a coincidence? She couldn't be a cross-border wizard. She knew nothing about magic. Shenyan could see this as early as the first time they met, when she shook hands with him without any suspicion. Shenyan used his mental tentacles to scan her inside and out. The conclusion was that she was a standard Kryptonian, and might even be stronger than Superman after growing up under the sun for a period of time. But she didn't have any magic power in her body, absolutely none, and the physical examination results proved this more clearly. Within seconds, Shenyan's mind was racing. On the surface, he still nodded with a peaceful smile. Of course you can go home, Kara, but I have to deal with the small problem of the dimensions being too close. I mean, I have to solve the problem at hand first, so that I can have a free hand to send you home. Hearing his words, the Kryptonian girl breathed a sigh of relief. The worries just now disappeared in an instant, and she returned to her energetic appearance. That's good, Mr. He. I thought I couldn't go back. I will come to you after the matter is resolved, Kara. You just need to play the game for a few more days, and everything will be solved naturally. The wizard smiled and opened a portal to Kamartaj, but after watching her leave, the smile disappeared in an instant. Interesting, he said. He who has ears, let him hear. Then I saw a beast rising out of the sea, with 10 horns and 7 heads, with 10 crowns on his horns, and blasphemous names on his heads. The dragon they worshipped gave authority to the beast, so they worshipped the beast and said. Strange closed the heavy book and frowned. Who is stronger than this beast? I never knew you were interested in the Bible. When did you become a Christian, Strange? Shenyan's voice echoed in the library of the Holy of Holies, followed by his footsteps. The wizard walked into the bookshelves with his hands behind his back. Strange was floating above his head with a distressed expression and a scarlet book in his hand. Seeing the book, Shenyan raised his eyebrows. How did you find this book? Doomsday? He asked. You actually know this is Doomsday? I just read the content of Revelation 13 in the Bible. Strange returned to the ground leisurely and handed the scarlet book in his hand to Shenyan. It let out a reluctant scream, but after being taken over, it was silent. I have read every book in Kamartaj and even in the Sanctum Sanctorum, Strange. I know this is nothing special about the Doomsday book. I have read it more than a dozen times. Shenyan lowered his head and flipped open the Doomsday book. The book itself was resisting his flipping. It wanted the wizard to let it go, but it could only think about it. His hands flipped it open with unquestionable strength, and a wailing sound mixed with the choking smell of sulfur flowed from between the opened pages. Strange frowned. Can't you show more respect to this ancient book? It is based on human skin, bound by human bones, and written in human blood. Strange, I don't burn this thing, which means I respect it very much. But you? What do you want to do by taking this thing out? Shenyan asked casually while flipping through the Doomsday book. The book screamed again, full of pain. So, he moved his hands to the edge of the page, pretending to tear it in half, and the scream of the doom stopped immediately. The sulfur smell also disappeared, and it stayed quietly in his hands. Strange rubbed his eyebrows, reached out and took a glass of ice water from the air, and then drank it all. He bared his teeth, exhaled a breath of cold air, and then slowly spoke. However, Shenyan stopped him. He raised the finger, and the doom floated up, and the pages turned. It began to tremble, trembled wildly, and the pages kept turning, as if there was a strong wind sweeping. Black smoke and the choking smell of sulfur filled the entire library again, accompanied by the sound of some heavy doors being opened, and the pages froze on one of them. Shenyan stared at the page. It read, "Everything you love will die. The Lord will come, and then everything will end with you. Sinner, repent." The spirit of the Holy of Holies floated down from the ceiling quietly, watching him. Then, a voice sounded from the book. "You have nowhere to escape, nowhere to go. Master, we found you." Shenyan narrowed his eyes. There is a fact widely circulated among the masters of Kamartaj, which is one of the reasons why they are not interested in any belief. The Doomsday Book is an evil book that appeared in the 11th century, with human skin as the base, human bones as the binding, and human blood as the writing. Over a long period of time, it has caused countless disasters. Many people died because of it, and some even left traces in history. For example, the Black Death plague that occurred from 1347 to 1353 killed 25 million Europeans, which accounted for 1/3 of the European population at that time. However, there are more disasters that are so terrible that they cannot even be recorded in history. It will bewitch the mortals who pick it up, making them step by step become the most depraved and terrifying creatures. However, their hearts are not polluted at all. For example, the person who caused the plague epidemic believed that he was saving everyone from the devil until his death, and they would go to heaven, and he was the leader. Did they go to heaven? Yes, because the Doomsday Book was written by angels. If he remembered correctly, the angels in this world had died a long time ago. The voice continued, "You are powerless, no one can help you, and no one can save you. Do you always say the same old things?" Shenyan laughed. "It's always like this. My ears are almost calloused from hearing it. Everyone you cherish will die. Your world will be destroyed by us, and you can only watch from the sidelines. I don't know who you are, but I can probably guess that you are one of those winged bastards, right?" The voice roared angrily. "Blasphemy! How dare you? I dare, and you can't do anything to me. If you have a trick to deal with me, you can just come directly at me, without having to go around and pick those people or things that I protect. And according to my experience, usually people who do this, or bastards like you, are pitifully weak." He smiled happily. "What I mean is that you are not only a bastard, but also a pitifully weak bastard. Do you understand?" The voice roared angrily again, but before he could answer, Shenyan closed the book. The smile on his face did not disappear, but became more and more prosperous. Strange raised his head and glanced at the spirit of the sanctuary, and said to her, "Well, respected guardian, it looks like we are going to start a war." "War?" she asked puzzledly. "What war?" "No, not this time, Strange." Shenyan raised his hand to stop him. "I know, when you see my expression, you are probably thinking again, ah, he's going to start again, but this time is different. There will be no war this time." "What do you want to do?" "This is my business," Shenyan said calmly. "They are here to find me, so this is not a war, and even if there is, I will turn it into a massacre. Continue to track down the gypsy, Strange, and notify me as soon as there is progress. I have a hunch that there is nothing behind this matter." He lowered his head and glanced at the record of destruction in his hand, weighing it thoughtfully. After a long time, he said, "Strange, what do you think of world travel?" And Chapter 599 again. 3 wagons surrounded an open space, and horses were grazing on one side. People were sitting or standing around the fire, and sparks flew out from the firewood, some hitting the stones surrounding the flames, and some drifting slowly with the breeze. There was a thin layer of light hanging on the horizon, a mixture of light red and purple, which looked like lipstick on a woman's mouth. Then, a truly, absolutely beautiful woman wearing the same color lipstick walked out of a wagon. Her 10 fingers were full of rings, her face was pale, and there was always a smile on her lips. Her long violet hair was casually scattered, her long skirt was creeping on the ground, and her 2 bare feet stepped on the grass. The woman bowed slowly. "Welcome, welcome, everyone. I'm glad you can come to watch this special divination." She looked around, and many people had been absorbed by her beauty. Humans are visual animals. She is beautiful, and such an ambiguous moment in the evening makes her beauty even more extreme. Some men subconsciously showed a stupid smile just by being looked at by her. The woman reached out her hand, her fingers inadvertently brushing across the large area of milky white exposed on her chest. She dug deeper and took out a card. It was blank, with gold lines on the corners, which looked low-key and luxurious. "So, is there any gentleman willing to come up and help me?" The woman smiled with her hands covering her mouth. She didn't need to say anything more, and soon, almost all the men present raised their hands. By the way, there were only men present. She seemed to randomly choose a burly blond man, who waved his arms excitedly and walked forward. He took off his cowboy hat and stammered in a reserved and polite manner, "Madam, what can I do for you?" "What can I do for you, dear?" She curled her eyes and exhaled sweetly. "This is a divination. Hold this card." "Okay, dear?" The man immediately held it. "Very good, dear." The woman gently raised her hand, held his hand with her own, and then clenched it. The card began to twist, and then smoke rose from the man's fingers. He widened his eyes and smelled something strange. After a while, the woman loosened her hand, signaling him to do the same. He opened his palm and found that the card was crumpled into a ball, lying quietly in the middle of his palm. The woman picked it up and blew gently at it. In an instant, thousands of sparks bloomed from between her lips, and the card turned into a flaming rose, dancing freely in the air. It flew around the venue and returned to the woman's hand amid the exclamations and shouts of the people. She held the rose, and her beauty was even more beautiful than this flaming rose. "Well, dear," she smiled and pinned the rose behind her ear. Looking at the distracted man, gently stepped forward, and took out a card next to his ear. The border was embroidered with gold thread, and it was no longer blank. A man in a black robe stood on it with his back to everyone. "This is amazing, ma'am," the man said sincerely. "Is this magic?" "This is not magic, dear," the woman giggled. "It was just a failed divination. I wanted to predict your future, but he stopped me." Boom! Lightning flashed across the sky, and the mild weather turned into a rainstorm in an instant. Dark clouds covered the sky, and the last ray of light was swallowed up. The woman still smiled. She raised her head and made a gesture. The men who were invited to participate in the performance all fainted on the ground, and then were swallowed by the soil, and sent back to their own homes by the power of the land spirit. She held the card and threw it on the ground. A pale hand stretched out from the card, and at this time, the rain poured down, and Shenyan tore the card and got out. "Long time no see, Ms. Fortune Teller," he nodded to her politely. "I hope I didn't disturb your little fun. Well, your interest in finding young and strong men for divination has not disappeared." "You have disturbed me, unspeakable black." The fortune teller rolled her eyes and yawned boredly. The rain passed over her head, but not a single raindrop wet her hair. "I wanted to have a good time with them after the divination. 20 men should be enough for me to enjoy for a while. Other fortune tellers usually charge money, and there are not many who are greedy for physical pleasure like you," Shenyan said calmly. "Everyone has different interests, but you, dear why are you never tempted by me? You are obviously a normal man." "Am I not beautiful?" she asked with puzzled eyes. "You are beautiful." The wizard nodded. "Let's end the reminiscence here. I'd better not say some things, so as not to make you angry again." "You have already said it," the fortune teller said expressionlessly. "Besides, why are only you men allowed to have sex with different women all the time? I have the freedom to use my body to pursue happiness." Shenyan sighed. "The fortune teller is the more powerful one among many gypsies in the world, but she is very unsociable. In fact, all gypsy wizards avoid her, because this lady is addicted to something, and her addiction is even terrible. Many gypsies think that she has brought shame to them." "I don't intend to debate this with you, Ms. Fortune Teller. I just want to ask you a question. Were you present at the conflict between the voodoo and the gypsies 2 years ago?" "I was there." "Damn it, why do you have to ask this?" She put her hands on her hips and rolled her eyes again. "I was enjoying myself with some of the young men among them, but then the group of voodoo lunatics rushed in. I didn't even have time to put on my clothes, and they said that I was no longer welcome here." "That means you were there at the time." Shenyan nodded, and his mental tentacles began to scan the memories in her brain. "At the same time," he asked, "So, do you know this person?" A ray of light bloomed from the fingers of his right hand, and an ugly but unbelievably strong man appeared on the grass beside him. He was holding a skull in his hand. "No," Ms. Fortune Teller replied. "But your memory doesn't say so." The wizard smiled and moved his fingers again. Lightning struck from above the fortune teller's head, knocking her to the ground in an instant. The current did not kill her, but it was killing her ability to feel pleasure bit by bit. She fell to the ground in horror, staring at Shenyan with wide eyes. "Let me explain to you, Ms. Divination. I won't kill you. After all, you haven't done anything bad. But you are lying to me, and what you are trying to hide is related to the safety of our world. So I have to deprive you of the ability to feel pleasure. As long as you tell me the truth, I will give this ability back to you. How about it?" "Haven't you seen my brain? Why do you have to let me say it?" "Oh, you know? Nonsense. You do this to everyone. You lunatic. She cursed. As long as we have a little resistance, you start searching memories. That's why you can't be the Sorcerer Supreme. I don't quite agree with you, Ms. Divination. Strange's voice came from behind her. The reason why he can't be the Sorcerer Supreme is because he is too cruel, and this position requires a little bit of humanity. It happens that I am weaker than him, so I became the Sorcerer Supreme. He walked to Ms. Divination and looked at her seriously. But I have to tell you one thing, Ms. Divination, sometimes, I am also very cruel. Say it out. Shenyan whispered beside her. Tell it yourself, Ms. Fortune Teller. I want to hear it. I guess you know the reason. She began to tremble, tears wet her makeup, and the rain touched her body, wet her clothes and hair. She looked no longer elegant and beautiful, but like a broken painting. No, no, you can't do this. I didn't do anything that violated the mage code. You have seen my memory, Shenyan. You have seen it. You know what will happen if I tell the truth. She was almost screaming. I don't want to die. You won't. Shenyan squatted down, gently raised his hand, and wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes. Then he gently helped her up from the ground. He looked at her eyes full of tears and fear, and showed a calm smile. You won't die, I promise. After 2 minutes of staring at each other, she gave in. Ms. Fortune Teller trembled and said, I know him. Then, her head exploded. The beauty disappeared, leaving only fragments of flesh and bones at the broken neck. Blood gushed out, and just when it was about to stain Shenyan's clothes, he let go. He turned his head expressionlessly. How long do you want to see? He asked Strange. Strange, with a stern face, did not speak. He crossed his hands, and the eye of Agamotto on his chest made a buzzing sound. Green light bloomed, and time reversed. Her head recovered again, but there was still fear on her face. Did I die once? She stuttered and asked, tears welling up in her eyes. Yes, you died once, but you didn't die, just like I promised. Well, so, this man has the ability to set a trigger curse in your brain. Shenyan narrowed his eyes and began to make inferences as if no one was around. He is ugly, very special. He knows voodoo spells, which can be called textbook, but he is a gypsy, and he is with a group of gypsies that no one knows. Considering the reason why the dimension connection has become closer, I think I can make a very reasonable inference. Strange closed his eyes. Don't tell me he's from a parallel universe. Strange's voice was as thin as a mosquito's hum. I don't want to deal with it again. Again? Yes, again. He opened his eyes with a bitter expression. There is more 2K debt repayment. Chapter 600 Strange's journey into the parallel universe. So you had a fight with Wanda? Yes, she was so strong that she could hunt you across the world, and she could project her consciousness into her parallel universe self to control her. That's right. You also fought a dark version of yourself. Yes, by the way, he was really weak. Strange curled his lips. He was still borrowing the power of the dimensional demons until he died. Well, Shenyan pondered for a while, and suddenly said very sincerely, you are a surgeon, right, Strange? Do you know any colleagues in the psychiatry department? I'm not crazy. I know. Shenyan raised his hand, soothed his emotions, and made an expression that he believed him very much. Of course you are not crazy. You are still the Supreme Sorcerer. You just have a little mental problem, that's all. You are just sick, Strange. I said, I'm not crazy, Strange said with gritted teeth. Shenyan looked at him with sympathy, and even patted his shoulder, sighing. I really didn't expect you to end up in a mental hospital. Alas, you are so sick that you can't even tell that I am joking with you. Not everyone's sense of humor is as weird as yours, Strange shouted in a breakdown. Shenyan turned around and asked Tony, who was drinking beside him, is my sense of humor weird? Tony shook his head at him without changing his expression. It's just that the bearded mental patient doesn't know how to appreciate it. He is the one with the problem. Then I feel relieved. I thought my sense of humor was really weird. How could it be? It's this man with a beard, a cloak and a plaid shirt who has bad taste. I think so too. Great minds think alike. Are you two done yet? After a short episode and jokes, the wizard and Tony both laughed very happily, except for a certain horse-faced man who disagreed. although no one cared about his opinion. Tony wiped the tears from the corners of his eyes and laughed heartily. He panted and said, "I have to say, Strange, your expression just now was really funny." Shenyan patted him. "Don't laugh. Can't you see that someone is almost mad now?" "Yeah." Tony touched his chin and looked at Strange's face carefully, frowned, and took a breath. "He seems to be really angry." Okay. Shenyan stopped this nonsense in time. After all, Strange had already started to prepare to cast a spell. He put on a serious expression. "Where is Wanda now?" "Missing." Strange rubbed his eyebrows and complained, "Are you finally willing to listen to my explanation? Stop making those damn jokes of yours." "Yeah, yes, go on." Tony nodded perfunctorily. Anyway, it all started because she wanted to get back her non-existent child. I still don't understand how she suddenly became so strong, and even projected her consciousness between worlds. Strange lowered his head with a heavy expression, "But it doesn't matter. She seems to be affected by something, because in the end, she sent me back. She said something to me with guilt, but unfortunately I couldn't hear it clearly at the time." "She sent you back?" "Yes." Strange nodded. Time goes back to 2 years ago. Parallel universe. Strange stood on a completely different street in New York with a melancholy expression. People came and went, and no one could find him. The tricks he learned from Shenyan were quite useful. In fact, everything he learned was quite useful. It is no exaggeration to say that Shenyan changed the modern wizard. Thinking of this, he smiled bitterly. "If you were here, the matter would have been resolved long ago," he muttered to himself, and a glass-like substance began to gradually spread under his feet. Starting from where he stood, it spread all the way to the top of his head. From the outside, it looked like a round glass ball, blurry and unclear. Strange was standing in it, with orange flames wrapped around his hands. A woman appeared in front of him at some point, her expression dull, but her eyes were burning with anger. "Don't be like this, Wanda." "This is the city center," Strange said softly while standing in the glass ball. "You won't do this, right?" "This is not our world," Wanda said coldly. "In theory, I can kill everyone, and I won't feel any guilt." "Are you going to kill me too?" "If necessary, I will." "Give them back to me," Wanda growled. "That's not your child, Wanda." "I don't know what happened to you, but there has never been a robot called Vision in our world. And you have never had a child. Don't you remember?" "The Ultron project was stopped at the very beginning." Strange spoke fiercely, not caring about Wanda's emotions at all. "Maybe in this universe, you did marry a robot, and somehow had a child. You are now using your body in this universe, but your will is still in it. You are the Wanda I know, and the Wanda I know has no children at all." As he spoke, his hands behind his back began to slowly accumulate power. As long as Wanda showed any intention to attack, he would instantly turn the glass ball over and temporarily trap Wanda. That should give him some time to open the portal and leave here. Although he didn't know why Wanda would bring him to another universe like crazy and ask him for her own child. But her target was herself. That's right, as long as he stayed away from the crowd, they would not be in danger. Strange made all the preparations he could, but Wanda didn't attack him. On the contrary, her expression began to become confused. The whole person began to stagger. She gasped for air, suddenly knelt on the ground, covered her head, and said painfully, "No, get out. This is not my memory." "What the hell?" Strange looked at her and out, and after a while, Wanda raised her head, and her eyes contained emotions other than anger. I'm sorry, Doctor," Wanda said hoarsely, and her hands lit up red. "I will send you back. Don't come to me. They have found out." Between the flashing red lights, Strange returned to the Sanctum Sanctorum in New York again. I have to say in advance that except for this part, it has basically nothing to do with the plot of Strange 2. The script is terrible. What a shit. Outrageous. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.